Ladies and gentlemen, we are live for the second consecutive night to cover NASCAR Speed Week 2024 as we have today the Bluegreen Vacation Duels at Daytona, as this will set the starting lineup for the inside lane for the starting lineup for the Daytona 500 through dual race number 1, and of course in dual race number 2 we will set the outside lane for the Daytona 500. We still have 4 more drivers coming into this race here tonight, or the set of races vouching for the final 2 transfer spots to clinch their way into the Daytona 500, and obviously the rest of the starting grid with points on the line for regular season drivers or for Cup Series drivers vouching for playoffs at the very beginning of the season. This is technically the first points paying race of the year, as remember, points are paid to the top 10 finishing positions in each race, kind of similar to how stages work in NASCAR, where the first 2 stages drivers are awarded as many as 10 regular season points. That will be the case here tonight as well. No playoff points on the line, but again, regular season points are to be obtained. 10 points, obviously, if you win the race, 9 points for second, 8 for third, all the way down to 1 point for a 10th place finish. Thanks for everybody tuning in here this evening. Thanks for everybody that tuned in last night during the Daytona 500 qualifying live stream. But here today, of course, we've got 2 races for you, 60 laps each, 150 miles. 21 cars in each race, 2 open drivers in each race, and again, the highest finishing of the 2 open drivers that remain to have to make their way into the 500 based off their finishing position tonight will make it to the Daytona 500. And of this race today, we'll be starting in third in the Daytona 500 behind pole winner Joey Logano, who ended the streak of 11 consecutive Chevys to qualify in the front row for the Daytona 500. As of the last 11 years on the pole specifically, Logano was able to get his first career pole for the Daytona 500 last night. Michael McDowell also qualified on the outside of the front row in second place, so he will be the pole sitter for dual race number 2. But if we're going to talk about dual race number 1 and our predictions for dual race number 1, I don't have drivers who I don't think are going to run well necessarily like I would every single week, or potential sleeper picks. We're just going to keep it plain and simple for the dual races tonight. I'm going to pick my winner in each race, and we're going to start off with breaking down dual race number 1. Joey Logano, definitely one of the favorites to win this race. We've not seen a pole sitter in a dual race win very often. The reason being is because they tend to kind of drop out of the pack if the racing gets a little aggressive, because if they're in the risk of potentially wrecking, they will not have that front row starting spot for the Daytona 500 anymore if they have to move to a backup car. So usually don't see them racing up towards the front for a lot of this. They'll maybe race for a couple laps and then drop out of the pack, or they'll stay up towards the front if it's kind of single filed out. I don't expect that to be the case here in dual race number 1, though, because Joey Logano is known to be a very aggressive driver, an aggressor, and really a really good super speedway racer. We don't usually see really good super speedway racers in the spot that Joey Logano is in, where he already has the pole for the Daytona 500. Remember, again, recent years we see Alex Bowman in this position a lot, or any of the other Hendrick cars, and really outside of Chase Elliott, he's the only Hendrick car that has liable experience, at least in this situation. William Byron, I guess, too, to a certain extent, but Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman, not really proven super speedway racers, so things get a little sketchy. They tend to kind of hop out of the pack. Although Kyle Larson, who was on the front row last year, did run his dual race, which was dual race number 2 until the very end, almost got caught up in a big wreck on the final lap while pushing Todd Gillen in that inside lane. Gillen got a little squirrely, made a good save, and Larson obviously backed out of the gas to allow him to make the room to make the save, and Larson still got his front row starting spot. So unless we see something of that situation again here today, I would imagine that in most of these races, or both of these races, that the pole sitter will more than likely drop out of contention here towards the end. But again, out of the 2 races, if there were to be a driver to push the issue and try to go for the win in the dual race despite being on the front row, would be Joey Logano. Joey Logano is a 3-time dual race winner. He actually has the most dual race wins of any driver in this first race, excluding, of course, Jimmy Johnson, who is only running part-time at Legacy Motor Club. More on Johnson here in a little bit. Logano's wins came in 2019, 2020, and 2023. I do think he is one of my personal favorites to win the Daytona 500 this week. I'm not going to lock him in as my pick to win the 500 yet, but he was my pick to win the dual race last year that he ended up winning, and he was my pick for the 500. He finished second. I would not be shocked if he does have a strong run tonight, even if he does drop out of things early to preserve his front row starting spot for the 500. Another driver who I think out of the Chevy camp is probably going to have the best opportunity to win this dual race number 1 is going to be Chase Elliott. He's actually won 2 dual races in his career already back in 2017 and 2018, his earlier years with Hendrick Motorsports, both before he actually got his first career NASCAR Cup Series win in a points-paying race. I think even at that time it was before they started awarding points to the dual race winners as well, but needless to say, he's been in this situation before. He's starting towards the front. There are a lot of Chevys in this first dual race, as you see on our leaderboard right now. More Chevys than any other manufacturer in this first race. There's a lot more Fords in dual race number 2, and actually the majority of the Toyotas are in this field, but they're all starting in the back half of the field due to not having great speed in single car qualifying last night. I do think Chase Elliott is a good pick to win this race. In fact, he is my personal pick to win this race. Austin Dillon has won a dual race in recent years as well. At Daytona 2021, he won a dual race there. He also won the summer race in 2022, which was with the next-gen car. RCR was really quick on all the super speedway races last year, primarily Kyle Busch, but remember, Austin Dillon was up there in contention for the 500 win with Kyle Busch late. So Austin Dillon could be a good upset pick, I think, for this first dual race. If you're looking at a sleeper pick, another good upset pick out of the Ford camp would be Todd Gilliland. There's not a lot of Fords in this first race, which is why I shied away from taking a Ford. Very high on the Fords and super speedways. I think I picked a Ford to win a super speedway race, all 6 of them that they ran last year, including the dual races, and I went 1 for 2 in picking the right Ford in that race. I did not pick the right Ford in the second race where Eric Almirola ended up winning. But I think I took Chris Buescher, in fact, in that one. Reason why I steered away from Chris Buescher again in this one is because of the lack of Fords. There's only 4 of them. I think that's going to come into play if we see green flag pit stops, which we tend to see in the dual races. There aren't as many accidents with only half the cars in the field, and there's only 1 set of green flag stops that have to be made, whether that is split in half at the halfway mark or at the end of the field run right around the lap 40 to 45 marker like we saw in both races last season. As far as Chris Buescher goes, he is a one-time dual race winner back in 2022, and that was the, of course, first set of dual races with the next-gen car. Buescher also won the summer Daytona race last season, so great success at this racetrack for him and for RFK Racing since the rebrand a couple of years ago, but lack of numbers, I think, is going to be the big reason why they're going to lose it. Of the Chevys in the field, it does seem like there's a lot of fast Chevys or proven Chevys on super speedways in recent years. I mentioned Austin Dillon having a next-gen win at Daytona in the summer of 2022 and a dual race win here back in 2021, even if it was with the Gen 6. Ross Chastain, he has won a super speedway in the next gen at Talladega in 2022. Chase Elliott's got a win at Talladega also in 2022 with the next gen, and 2 dual wins at Daytona as well. So I do like the Chevys in this first race. They've got the numbers. I think the Toyota starting too far deep in the field kind of hurts their chances. Denny Hamlin is not in this race as well, which if I had to pick, a strong Toyota for the weekend, coming into the weekend and coming into these races tonight, it would be Denny Hamlin. He's not in this race. The only Toyotas in this race would be Jimmy Johnson, who is a part-timer, Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex Jr., who is notoriously bad at super speedways. Eric Jones would probably be the strong suit out of the Toyota camp for this race in particular, but again, he starts in the back half of the field, as is the rest of them. The only good thing that the Toyotas will have is the numbers. Are actually outnumbering Fords in this race, so maybe they can group together a little bit better during the green flag pit stop cycling than in years past. In this race in particular, maybe more so than dual race number 2. So going with Chase Elliott as my pick to win this race here today. And I'm quickly going to actually check the poll that I put up in the community tab section of the channel. I asked you guys who you thought was going to win dual races number 1 and number 2 in separate polls. And we'll go over the results of dual race number 1 real quick right here on the channel. 40 votes casted in a very tight poll. The voting choices were between Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, or you could have picked other. And Joey Logano and Chase Elliott are tied at 28% of the votes. So you guys are kind of thinking the same thing as me. Chris Buescher, 23%, just barely behind that, 20% for other. And Chastain only getting 3% of the votes. Chastain's best dual race finish, let me pull that back up real quick, is 9th in 2020, which was actually with Chip Ganassi Racing. With Trackhouse, he has not had good finishes in his Daytona duels in particular, even though he's had stronger runs on legitimate super speedway points-paying races, but not in the duels specifically. So again, 40 votes casted Joey Logano, Chase Elliott tied amongst the top for your guys as the fans vote for tonight's first race. Terry Lewis, Joanne C., Patrick Chadley, Patty and Rumdy Creations, John Barber, Dan Bowers, and others. Welcome into the stream, everybody. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content if you haven't already. Live commentary streams all the way through the NASCAR season on the NASCAR Truck Xfinity and Cup Series side. More streams this weekend for the live commentary side because, of course, it is Daytona. We've got action every night from last night all the way through Sunday. Weather obviously permitting that, as there is a pretty substantial chance of rain on Sunday. So if that gets washed out, we may be having a Monday or Monday night Daytona 500 again this year like we did a couple of seasons ago in 2020, most notoriously back in 2012. Hopefully we don't see that, but the likelihood is there. But I'll still be here streaming the Daytona 500 for you guys one way or another, whether that is Sunday or Monday night. As far as this stream goes, we will be live for both of these two races, all in this stream, so not separate streams today. All of the dual racing action will be right here. You won't have to go anywhere. So definitely feel free to hit that like button, comment throughout the course of the races. I'll try to get to your comments as much as I possibly can. Billy Kramer, thanks for tuning in as well. Jimmy Johnson make the 500. Yeah, that's the next thing we have to get to here. Who do I think is going to make the Daytona 500? It's either Jimmy Johnson or J.J. Yeley in this first dual race. Speed alone would tell you Jimmy Johnson's going to get in. Really, I think the only thing that could take Johnson out of the Daytona 500 in this first dual race is if he gets into an incident, which isn't impossible because there's probably way more aggressive drivers, I'd say, in this first dual race than in other dual races. Some of the aggressors, you got Joey Logano, Ross Chastain in this race, Austin Dillon to a certain extent, Ty Gibbs, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. There's a lot of aggressive drivers in this first dual race. So that can dice things up quite a bit here. Though, again, a lot of Chevys in this race. So I could see things getting dicey early, getting dicey late, and I could see a low point of single file action in the lap 20 to lap 40 to 45 marker leading into green flag pit stops. And we'll see how spread apart things may get if we get to those green flag pit stops in this one. But that's kind of how I see this first race going about. I'm not going to break down race 2 in specific detail until we get to that breaking point between the two dual races, and we'll have more time to talk about dual race number 2. So just wanted to preface all my predictions for this race for dual race number 1. Again, my favorites to kind of win this race would be Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, if he does stay in it to the very end. Ross Chastain, I'd probably put around like 3rd or 4th best. Chris Buescher in there as well. It's just the lack of Fords is the reason why I didn't go with Chris Buescher. Todd Gilliland, I think, is probably the biggest upset pick in this first dual race. Again, he almost won the duel last year. He led coming to the white flag and still finished 7th despite having to make a miraculous save in turns 1 and 2 after a mistimed bump draft with Larson on his back bumper at that time. Dale Campbell, Jeff, you're 7. Thanks for tuning in as well. Marcus Collins, thanks for tuning into the stream. Definitely hit that like button, ladies and gents. Jamie Little standing with Chase Elliott. You'll get to listen in.
You have a new spotter, a new full-time spotter in Trey Poole. What are you hoping to learn working with him here at the Super Speedway and just everything in general for 150 miles?
Yeah, I think, this is a unique race nowadays, right, because we don't have practice leading into qualifying anymore. So, really, this is our first time we've had extended laps in the car and just an opportunity to feel out what we have. So it is an important night, and there's points on the line too now, and as I learned last year, those can matter quite a lot. So, we're looking forward to it. I'm excited to get the year kicked off and try to keep the Napa Chevy in one piece tonight. Obviously, we'd like to race this car on Sunday, first and foremost. So we'll try to, stay up front here, got a good starting spot, and go to work and try to get ourselves in a good position to have a good pit pick for Sunday. Obviously, I think that really matters more than the starting spot.
All right, that's 6-time most popular driver Chase Elliott rolling off 3rd here in duel number 1, Mike.
We'll go through the starting lineup for dual race number 1 in specific order this time. Row 1, Joey Logano, the 3-time dual race winner, will be on the pole. His first pole for the Daytona 500 in his NASCAR career. He's also the 2015 winner of the 500. Kyle Larson's best dual race finish is 3rd. He'll be starting on the outside in row 2. That 3rd place finish came in 2020 with Chip Ganassi Racing. Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon will line up in road number 2 in this one. Chase Elliott, a two-time dual winner in 2017-2018, and as mentioned, Austin Dillon won his dual race in 2021. Row number 3, Ross Chastain, Todd Gilliland. Best finish for Chastain, 9th in 2020 in his best duel, and 7th last year for Todd Gilliland in the 38. Ryan Preece and Chris Buescher is going to line up in row number 4. Buescher won the dual race in 2022, and Preece's best finish in a duel, 5th in 2021. Alex Bowman, Daniel Suarez will make up row 5. Bowman with one top 5 finish in a duel that came in a 5th place run back in 2019, and Daniel Suarez's best finish 3 times an 8th place finisher in his duels. Anthony Alfredo and Eric Jones will line up in row 6. Second career start for Anthony Alfredo this weekend as he qualified his way in on time last night. Eric Jones' best finish in a duel is 3rd place. He did that 2 different times. Daniel Hemrick and Martin Truex Jr. row 7. Hemrick back with colleague racing and full time at that in the NASCAR Cup Series, making his 3rd career Daytona 500 start this weekend. And Martin Truex Jr.'s best duel finish in his rookie season back in 2005, where he finished in 4th. Ty Gibbs and Martin Truex Jr. making up row 8. Second career 500 start this weekend for Gibbs. Stenhouse, the defending Daytona 500 winner, and his best duel finish was 2nd in 2019. Corey LaJoie, Jimmy Johnson making up row 9. Johnson, a 3-time duel winner in 2005, 2010, and 2015. Corey LaJoie, 5th in his duel race a season ago. Tyler Reddick and Carson Hocevar making up row number 10. Hocevar with his first career NASCAR Daytona 500 start this weekend. And Tyler Reddick, 2 top 10s in his 5 career duel races in the NASCAR Cup Series. J.J. Yeley going to round out the field in row 11. He is the 2nd of the 2 open entries in duel race number 1. His best duel finish was 6th in 2007 with Joe Gibbs Racing. Johnson and Yeley will be going head-to-head for that final spot to make it into the Daytona 500, at least through Duel 1, and then we'll have 2 more open entries racing for a final spot in Duel number 2 as well. We'll get to that, obviously, in an hour to an hour and a half or so when that race begins. But as for this first 60-lap heat/duel, this is going to be an interesting one. I think this is going to be maybe the most aggressive of the 2 races here today. If I did have to pick which one was going to be more aggressive than the other, just based off the drivers listed in that starting lineup for this one. We are moments away from the drop of the green flag. They're about to check pit road times this time by, and then I believe they'll be getting one to go either this time or the following time by at the start-finish line. Always rains on the 500. Yeah, in recent years, unfortunately. This will be the first in the next-gen era. 2022, 2023 went through without a hiccup as far as rain. They had rain during speed weeks last year, but it was during the truck race on Friday night, as that got rain shortened. I know there's no rain in the forecast today, so that's good. We'll get these 2 races in uninterrupted, and also the Truck Series race tomorrow night will get in uninterrupted as well. Lights are out on the pace car, so they will be going green this time. Joey Logano has elected the inside lane for this initial start. Again, all Chevys right behind him. So he wasn't going to have a manufacturer alliance depending on the lane he went through. And we'll see how aggressive this will get. How much 2 and 3 wide action we're going to see in this one. Again, 21 cars in each dual race. I think this race has a perfect mix of potential underdog candidates to win as well as just overall aggressive drivers. I think you have a lot more established veterans in dual race number 2 in the number category of how many there are compared to dual race number 1, but there are a lot of accomplished super speedway racers specifically in this first duel, maybe in comparison to Duel 2. There are some in Duel 2, but not as many, I think, as Duel Race number 1. As I mentioned, just going real quickly right back through this again, I think we have 6 former Duel Race winners in this first race alone. And that also would include, on a quick junior, so 4 former Daytona have won dual races as well. Pit window would be 60 laps and 150 miles. Pace car is on its way to pit road. Joey Logano will lead the field to the green as he will on Sunday, barring any catastrophic events that happen over the next 60 laps. Green flag is going to be in the air, and dual race number 1 to set the lineup for the Daytona 500 is underway. Quick bump up behind Kyle Larson and Austin Dillon. about a 3, 4, maybe 5 car length gap or so between the second car on the outside of Austin Dillon and the third car in the outside lane of Chris Buescher. Buescher getting a push from behind to try to quickly close that gap down the back straightaway. Todd Gillen pulls up from the bottom to the top, adding another number into the outside lane and a couple other cars into turns 3 and 4. Also moving to the outside as now everybody is gridlocked towards the front of the field. The leader at the end of the opening lap of dual race number 1 will not be the pole sitter, Joey Logano. Out ahead of the pack is Kyle Larson, who started in second. On the outside of the front row, leads by a car length at 2 on Joey Logano as he's still a little bit back there with Chase Elliott on his back bumper still on the double yellow line. Aggressively, though, into turn 3. Still pretty evenly door-to-door for second between Logano and Dillon. Todd Gillen still up in the mix, inside the top 5 on the scoring monitor at the line this time. Kyle Larson will lead lap 2 as well. Austin Dillon in second, and he is also clear of Logano in the bottom lane, who's not taken off very well from a speed department despite having great single car speed last night. Jimmy Johnson is in the outside groove, and J.J. Yaley also still in this lead pack. Only 1 second separates first through last and 21st. All 21 cars in this giant pack. Remember that Johnson and Yaley racing for a transfer spot into the Daytona 500. Anthony Alfredo was the other open driver in this race. But you have to remember that he is already in the 500 based off his qualifying time from last night. 4 of them now as Chris Buescher moves down in front of Joey Logano as well, and the pole sitter Logano falls from first to about 5th here in the first 3.5 laps or so. Kyle Larson still leads the way, bottom lane. Chase Elliott is also still on the bottom lane behind Joey Logano. Been trapped down there, has been able to escape from the bottom, continues to lose positions as well, and a massive momentum gain on the outside for Daniel Suarez as he gets help from the 43 of Eric Jones. Jones started in 12th, goes from 12th to 4th at the line there in the first 4 laps of the race and pushes Daniel Suarez nearly to the lead into turn 1 on lap 5. Suarez is clear of that bottom groove of Kyle Larson. He'll move down to block. Eric Jones going to get a push from behind now, and he may fill up the outside lane on the front row, and he's got another Toyota behind him of Martin Truex Jr. So the Toyotas helping one Chevy get to the front, and now more Toyotas in the outside groove trying to lead the way. Suarez is clear into turns 3 and 4. Remains in the bottom groove on the double yellow line in front of Kyle Larson and Austin Dillon. Todd Gillen as well in there. Off the exit of the corner, Jones side drafts the 99, got alongside of him, and Suarez, although he got to the lead, never officially led a lap. Eric Jones is going to be the leader at the end of lap 5. 2 by 2 through this entire field, and still nobody has lost the draft of this giant pack. All 21 cars still in it. 1.1 seconds the difference now between Eric Jones in first and J.J. Yaley in 21st at the end of that lap. Our live leaderboard will update when the race leader hits the start-finish line at the end of every lap. You can watch these races on Fox Sports 1 visually, but right here on the channel you can listen to them on KRC. Lap number 6. Eric Jones going to lead a second consecutive lap. Truex not as aggressive in the bump drafting side of things down the straightaways on Eric Jones, but both those Toyotas looking like they're showing some speed here in the race trim in these opening laps. Jimmy Johnson's made his way into the top 10, another Toyota in the outside lane. He's got Ty Gibbs right behind him, so the Toyotas have made headway in the outside. A lot of side drafting with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. on Daniel Suarez. Top 2 cars from the outside of the Toyotas of Jones and Truex, former teammates at Joe Gibbs Racing, now aligned teammates at the manufacturer Toyota, with Legacy Motor Club making the switch from Chevy to Toyota during the offseason. Eric Jones is a former winner at Daytona in the NASCAR Cup Series. He won the summer race in 2018. It was his first career NASCAR Cup Series win, although, again, he has not won a dual race at Daytona. His best finish is 3rd place. 2 separate times he was able to do that in his Joe Gibbs Racing days as a full-time Cup Series competitor. Stenhouse has been very aggressive with the side drafts on the outside lane to whoever seems to be on the bottom. He did it aggressively on Suarez through 3 and 4 the last lap, and aggressively that time through 1 and 2 on Martin Truex Jr. Third car in the outside lane looked a little bit wide there in the back straightaway, like they were going to fan out even more. Couldn't tell exactly who that was. It may have been Corey LaJoie in the 7, but I'm not entirely sure on that. Jones and Truex still leading the bottom. Stenhouse leads the top, but Jones goes up to block the outside when Stenhouse gets enough of a run to pull alongside Truex. Wasn't able to through the tri-oval at least that time, and now he's getting another run into turn 1. We'll see if Truex maybe goes up to try to block that before Jones has a chance. Jones just mirror driving at this point and trying to manage that gap between himself and Truex as best as he can, whether that be by riding the brakes or maybe part throttle, through the corners especially, where handling is going to be a lot better for his car in the clean air versus everybody in the dirty air back behind him. And especially when you consider the fact that there were no practice laps ran in a pack leading up to the start of this race, but everybody seemed to be fairly steady. Not as much bumper-to-bumper contact being made in the draft, which is probably a good thing, considering these cars are probably still in their majority qualifying trim handling conditions from last night. It was the only time the cars have been on the track so far this weekend for that 1 or potentially 2 laps for the 10 drivers who made their way out of Group 1 into Group 2 of qualifying. But Erik Jones currently the race leader at the end of lap number 8. Martin Truex Jr. is scored in 2nd, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. 3rd, Daniel Suarez in 4th, Corey LaJoie 5th, Kyle Larson 6th, Jimmy Johnson 7th, Todd Gilliland 8th, Ty Gibbs 9th, Austin Dillon rounds out the top 10. In 11th place, it's Alex Bowman, Chris Buescher in 12th, Tyler Reddick in 13th, Joey Logano 14th, Ross Chastain 15th, Chase Elliott 16th, Carson Hocevar 17th, Ryan Preece 18th, J.J. Yeley 19th, Daniel Hemrick is in 20th, and Anthony Alfredo rounds out the 21-car field. And Alfredo seems to have lost that lead pack just a little bit. He is 1.6 seconds off the lead. It's a 7/10 of a second difference between he and Hemrick, who is the last car in the draft. Hemrick is 9/10 of a second off the lead in 20th. Stenhouse to the lead now. His first lap led of this duel. And no stages in these duels either. It's just 60 laps straight on. Again, everybody will have to pit one time at some point in time during each of these 2 races tonight. Sunshine Coolwater, thanks for tuning in. Refreshing to see your commentary races 2024. Prefer your live streams over television and MRN. Appreciate that, man. Glad you're back for more, and look forward to seeing you every week throughout the course of the season. Dark Crypto, welcome to the stream. Kyle Lance, welcome as well. We'll take our first ad break of the night while there's a full screen commercial break going on FS1 right now. Be sure to hit the like button once again if you have not yet, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. We'll continue our live coverage on KRC of the Blue-Green Vacation Duels at Daytona for the 500 in just a few days' time. Let you listen into a little bit of the NASCAR broadcast when we come back from the commercial break this time. Mike Joy, Kevin Harvick, Clint Boyer in the booth for the first half of the telecasted Cup Series season on Fox and Fox Sports 1. Again, tonight's races on FS1. Truck Series race on FS1 tomorrow night. Xfinity and ARCA both on FS1 Saturday. Cup Series on Big Fox Sunday.
Watching from our aerial coverage provided by Goodyear, powering the race from green to checkered flag and every mile in between. Goodyear, more driven. New leader, Corey LaJoie on the outside, taking it from Ricky Stenhouse.
I'll tell you how he did it. Jimmy Johnson, he's back. Old 7-time push LaJoie right to the front.
Jamie?
And Jimmy Johnson spent some time with him today, and he's back united with Earl Barbin, his longtime spotter of 15 years. They're back together. He was happy about that, but at the same time, the nerves, you could just see it in Jimmy's face. Never been in this situation before, as you guys talked about, so he was curious how it was going to race. It's the first time ever racing a Toyota. The only feedback he's given so far is he's loose.
Absolutely nothing better in a race car than success and that confidence that comes with it, right? When that baby marched right to the front, confidence goes with it. I bet you he feels much better.
Barbin and Johnson won 2 Daytona 500s together. Where's our pole sitter, Joey Logano? Larry?
Yeah, he has fallen back to 18th. And, Mike, I am not a bit surprised. I talked to his owner, Roger Penske, this morning. Roger Penske has 3 Daytona 500 wins, but has never sat on the pole for the Daytona 500. He said, I told Paul Wolf, Joey Logano, learn all you can, but I want to make sure this car starts on the pole on Sunday.
Yeah, that's kind of a double-edged sword, Clint. You know, you want the car to be up in the front of the pack to try to protect it as much as possible. I think he'd be safer in the front of the pack than he is in the back of the pack.
When a man like Roger Penske says, that there's something, believe it or not, in motorsports I haven't done, and you have the chance to do that, I'm going to do it. I'd get off the racetrack.
Well, let me play devil's advocate here. And you look at the back of the field, you've got Logano, you've got Priest, you've got Boucher, Chase Elliott, all those guys that started up in the front are in the back. So do they have a handling issue, or did they decide to go back there?
Oh, I don't think they all decided to go back there. I mean, it's just that those guys did a good job. Truex, Eric Jones, phenomenal job. Ricky Stenhouse leading this thing. They're the ones that capitalize on that.
One car has lost the draft. That is Anthony Alfredo. And that is of no consequence. His speed is fast enough to get him into the Daytona 500, so he won't be headed home tonight.
We're 16 laps in now, Kevin. Our handling is starting to show up.
Yeah, and a lot of times, it's going to be different with these cars than it was last year. A lot of times you hear Jimmy Johnson talk about loose, but a lot of times what happens is off of turn 4 especially, that car will get tight. It's just the way that the banking unloads off of turn 4, and there's some bumps, especially if you're on the bottom. You just got to watch that front end taking off up out of the corner so you don't hit the guy on the outside. But we heard Jimmy Johnson say it was loose.
Probably in a tri-oval, right? A lot of times when you get loose here, that tri-oval is tricky, believe it or not.
And we hear a lot hitting the guy in front of you. And I think as we go later into this race, trying to stay off the car.
Got loose off of 2. That gap, he's having a little bit more trouble. You can see him moving around out of the wake of LaJoie in front of him.
Well,
that line's starting to deteriorate a little bit.
As he moves up like that, you have to be really careful with getting that right front fender out in the air and having that right front dig in and the car spin out.
Green flag laps so far. Jimmy Johnson in the race-in spot in 5th. Kevin, understand you have some breaking news to share with us.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the new Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour podcast that we're going to start this Tuesday, actually. So you can join me every week with my new podcast, and Kevin Harvick's Happy Hour. It's going to be presented by NASCAR on Fox. It'll be myself and Caitlin Vincey and NASCAR's Mamba Smith. That'll be fun. I'll have somebody who can
good group.
Have fun with us and keep us, I guess, in style a little bit, maybe. He tells me that I'm way out of style. So, but you can find it wherever you get your podcasts and on social media. Harvick Happy Pod, anywhere on social media. So listen, Clint.
I will. Just be happy, okay?
Is Clint allowed to be on?
I'm not sure. We'll get through the first couple weeks, and
you're going to need a couple hours. Jimmy looks loose on that outside. Been watching him, having trouble getting into the corner, starting to lift that, get away from him a little bit, protect his position, trying not to put himself in harm's way.
So if you're wondering where are the Fords, well, there are only 4 of them in the first duel. The second duel is stacked with them, just as this duel is stacked with Chevrolets.
And that makes it tough for the Fords because of the fact that the Chevys have everybody has a plan from a manufacturer standpoint to try to work together and put yourself in position to get to the first pit stop and then get to the end of the race.
LaJoie's been working on doing that, just what he had. Finally got a gap there between first and second on that bottom. Took the hole. Now he moved back up for the block. LaJoie's making the moves. Uh-oh, now he's stuck in the middle, Kevin. He gone.
That's Darrell used to call that the sucker hole.
Yeah, now he's got to start over. He tried to follow Ricky Stenhouse Jr. down to the bottom, and there just was not enough room there for him to get down as well.
Well, he made a block. They were coming on the outside. Jimmy moved back up in front of them, and then I think he went to go back down low. That gap had already closed. All the way to the back. Unbelievable. Boy, that was quick.
He's got a little help there with Ryan Preece and Joey Logano, but doesn't seem like either of them are too interested in going forward at this stage. 21 laps is what we're working of 60 right now in the first duel at Daytona.
So Ricky Stenhouse Jr. continues to lead the way. He's led the most laps in the first 20 of this race, 10 laps led after coming from row number 8 on the outside, 16th place starting position for Stenhouse in this one to get to the lead. Eric Jones, who also started kind of far back in the field as well, at least outside the top 10 and 12th out of the 21 car field, is right there behind him in second. Martin Truex Jr., who also started back half of the field in 14th, is inside the top 3. So Stenhouse leads, Eric Jones second, Martin Truex Jr. third, Daniel Suarez is in fourth, Jimmy Johnson in fifth, Ty Gibbs sixth, Kyle Larson is seventh, Tyler Reddick in eighth, Ross Chastain ninth, Todd Gilliland now rounds out the top 10 as you saw the running order change a little bit there from one lap to the next in the midst of me going through the top 10. So that, again, is your top 10 in the running order through the first 20 or so laps of this race. We'll go to our next ad break as Fox Sports 1 is on another full screen commercial break. You're listening live to the Blue Green Vacation Duel Race number 1 at Daytona on KRC. Glad to see Kevin in the booth. Yeah, for sure. It's good hearing his voice. He did a great job in the Xfinity Series broadcast he's done over the last few years. Jimmy in the Petty Blue Camaro, yeah. Camry, you should say, not Camaro. Toyota. 84 does have to race in. Yep. Jimmy Johnson has to beat the 44 of J.J. Yaley. And Yaley's actually done a more competitive job than I would have thought coming into this one. He was as high as 12th from what I saw during that last TV stint that they had on the broadcast. 1.1 seconds off the lead, but still in the lead pack. Now back to 20th again, and Jimmy Johnson has dropped from about second before the commercial break to 6th, but still in the middle of that pack at the front of the field. Gonna have to get on and off of pit road with no problems. That's gonna be big. Remember Kaz Grala a couple years ago got caught speeding on pit road, which would have more than likely costed him a chance to win the 500, but in the midst of another green flag run, J.J. Yaley, oddly enough, at the time for MBM in the 55 car, had lost the lead draft, had no drafting help, and over the course of the post-green flag pit stop run to the end of the race, he caught right back up to Yaley. They both finished 18th and 19th a lap down, but passed him on the last lap to get the win due to the lack of drafting help. So you're going to want to get on and off the pit road without speeding first and foremost, and hope that you have enough drafting help behind you to help keep up with the other open car. That's the big thing here. Obviously, there's a lot of Chevy, so there's a manufacturer alliance there for Yaley, and there are quite a few Toyotas in this race, and all in the top 10 right now, all 5 of them inside the top 10. Only Ford in the top 10 is Gilliland in 8th, and the rest are fielded by Chevys.
Daniel Suarez in Chevrolet, and then Jimmy Johnson having to race his way into the 500.
Well, you saw Martin pop out of line back there to lead that top line, and they're definitely making some ground forward. But that's what you want to do. You want to strategize. When do I pull out? When I'm running 4th or 5th, 3rd, when do I want to pull out and be the leader of that line that's coming so that you can do exactly what Martin just did to be the leader of the race?
The flip side of that is Stenhouse saw it coming. He wanted to move up, elected to stay down. I think that was a pretty good move. Trex's car is extremely fast. Pretty impressive.
Look up here.
26 laps in, Larry Mack. What are we thinking about pit stops if we have to make them under green?
Well, remember, the fuel window is about 40 to north of 40 laps, and you've got to make one stop at least for fuel. So what I think you're going to see, Mike, we have 12 Chevrolets. I think they'll work together. I think, though, with only 4 Fords and 5 Toyotas, 9, they will work together. What you have to make sure you don't do is pit too early. It happened last year in Duel 1 with the Chevrolets. They pitted early. The Fords and the Toyotas stayed in line, and they made up so much ground, the Chevrolets just were taken completely out. I would say somewhere probably between 35 and 40.
Thanks. Regan?
Well, Mike, you see the 47 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. on the bottom there with Eric Jones behind him. Ricky's been quiet on the radio except one thing. About 10 laps ago, he came on the radio and said to tell Eric Jones behind me to push a little bit more on the center. Don't get quite off center as much as he is. Eric Jones, of course, we mentioned learning a new race car in terms of the nose on the front of that car. Interesting. The spotters communicated back and forth very nicely on the roof to get those guys to work together good.
Yeah, and when he's asking him to be a little bit square, the back bumpers have a little crown to them, Mike, and if you get off center with the back bumper, it kind of makes the car squirrely. And with the front of those cars being flat on the Toyotas now, you want to be as probably more to the center than what Eric has been in the past.
Jimmy's nose is a little flatter than it was a lap ago. He just gave Kyle Larson a little boot down the straightaway. And there Larson nestles right up against Martin Truex.
Yeah, Eric looks like he's getting tight. Eric Jones, that is, on the bottom behind Stenhouse as they got into the corner there. Big pushes on that outside. A lot of energy on this outside.
Yeah, and this is really when this race starts to play out, and especially if it's going to go green. And right here we see Kyle Larson's hood flapping up in the air. And that's when, as a driver, you know you're doing a really good job staying on that bumper as close as you can and pushing. Is that when that hood flap comes up like that, all that pressure comes from underneath the hood and starts blowing that flap up.
Stenhouse's car did not want to hold the yellow line that corner, and he drifted up a bit, side drafting off Kyle Larson to get a push back to the lead.
Yeah, and you'll see that flap.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to finish that sentence there, Mike. I think he's doing exactly what's the latter part of that. I think he's moving up, trying to slow their speed down a little bit with a side draft.
Yeah, and that flap is straight up, guys. Both cars, the flap is straight up. When they attach to that bumper, the air has to go somewhere, and it's coming out the bottom of the hood instead of staying over the top of the hood.
That means that car's doing exactly what he wants it to do. Everybody comes down to Daytona. All right, can I pull up? Can I push? I want to be able to push, crew chief. That's exactly what you see Larson able to do in that Hendrick car. Flip side of that is his teammates waiting on this next duel to come out. They're liking what they see.
Josh?
May have only been a couple laps yesterday, but Daniel Suarez entered this race really happy with his car. Remember some changes for the 99 team going into this year with Matt Swiderski now as the crew chief. He said the whole team sat down in the offseason. They worked on the line of communication to get familiar with each other. They looked at races from last year, specifically the Daytona 500, and how Daniel can handle the pack. Daniel said he feels a lot more comfortable this year, all coming off that top 10, confident what they can do, and he's showing it out there tonight, guys.
From a driver's standpoint, there's nothing better than confidence. And when you're on these super speedways, in my opinion, you need to race at the front of the pack, because if you don't, you're racing against guys at the end of the race that have learned and pushed and shoved and done everything that they've needed to do all day to know how to lead.
Look who's leading. Two drivers that have never had any luck in this race. The 19, Martin Truex, is 0 for 19 in these Thursday races. Kyle Larson in the 5, 0 for 10. But there they are, leading the field.
We're going to make you eat those words, Mike. All right, we heard Larry talk. It's time, Kevin. We've got to start finding. If we're going to pit with our manufacturers, with the teammates and everything else, try to form and execute a good pit stop under green flag conditions, they're going to have to start finding one another.
Well, a lot of them they're going to have to start finding one another, and they're going to have to work their way to the bottom in order to figure out how to get to pit road. You have to be in that bottom lane. So that's really when we're going to have to see who plans on pitting, because there's two different strategies.
Waiting on pit stops and don't want to miss them, so why don't we step away for a minute here with 32 green flag laps complete in the first of the Blue-Green Vacation Duels.
Full screen commercial break once again on FS1. Martin Truex Jr. is currently a race leader. Kyle Larson second. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. third. Jimmy Johnson fourth. And Eric Jones in fifth, as we're just past the halfway mark in dual race number 1. Only car out of this main pack is the 62 of Anthony Alfredo, already qualified his way into the Daytona 500 yesterday. And the other two open entries, as I mentioned, Johnson in fourth, and J.J. Yaley still in the lead pack in 15th, so we can't count him out of it yet. 1.1 seconds is the difference between first and 20th in this lead draft. No caution so far. Average speed of this race, 188.67 miles per hour, blistering pace thus far. Be sure to hit that like button once again and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content if you have not yet. Kenneth Clark, Jim Troyer, thanks for tuning in. NASCAR Vintage 17. Let's see who else has joined the chat here recently. As far as newcomers, I don't really see any other ones outside of who we've had in the chat here consistently tonight, but appreciate each and every single one of you guys tuning in once again. Stenhouse won the 500 a few years ago. He won the 500 a year ago, last season, 2023. Mike G, also welcome into the stream. Come back to Jimmy. Hey, Jimmy's doing good tonight. He ran pretty well at Daytona last year, too. He was up in the top 10 towards the end of the 500. Been pretty good with the super speedway races in this next-gen car. At least at Daytona, it's the only one he's really ran. We'll take a quick little ad break here, and then again, Green Flag Pit Stop should be coming up shortly. Listening live, KRC, Blue Green Vacation Dual Race number 1 for the Daytona 500. Christopher McComas, welcome back once again as well to the stream. Quite a few lead changes in this race. Martin Truex Jr. has led 9 laps. He is your current leader. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has still led the most up to this point through the first 34. 15 laps led for Stenhouse. Pole sitter Joey Logano did not lead a lap in this race. And so we have had a total of 5 different drivers lead at least 1 lap in the race today. And of those 5 drivers, we've had 11 lead changes. Quite a bit in 34 laps, really, when you consider the fact that there's only 21 cars in this field. Anthony Alfredo has now gone a lap down in the Beard Motorsports 62 Chevrolet. Not sure if he had made his pit stop already or not after losing the draft. A lot more cars on the outside lane than the inside. Looks like there's only about 6 or 7 cars on the bottom. 5 actually now on the bottom. So Stenhouse, who was leading there at the time of the start of the commercial break, that's why he has lost the lead. There aren't as many number of cars behind him as what there is on the outside of him. And he has fallen back to about 4th or 5th place now in that inside groove. Kyle Larson in 2nd has moved up behind Truex on the outside. Was kind of there already before they went to the break. They were still leading the outside, continue to lead the outside. And Jimmy Johnson now up to 3rd place right behind his former, not really teammates at Hendrick Motorsports, but used to drive at Hendrick Motorsports for his entire full-time Cup Series career. So maybe somewhat familiar seeing a Hendrick 5 car in front of him. Truex leading that time at the line again, down to just 24 laps to go in dual race number 1. Stenhouse is still getting a pretty good push on the inside from Eric Jones. That just, again, don't have the numbers. And Stenhouse hasn't been too aggressive at the side draft when he was on the bottom lane compared to when he was side drafting cars on the outside lane, trying to make his charge initially up through the field. Showing the 62 slow on the apron, down below the double yellow line. So Anthony Alfredo now 2 laps down in this one, and hopefully he can make it back to pit road. We don't get a caution here, and we can get the green flag pit stops fairly shortly. Again, that fuel window, 40 to 44 laps, and we are officially 37 laps complete at the line this time by. And they'll cross the stripe with Truex still out ahead. Top 4 cars clear of the inside lane cars right now. Ty Gibbs has made his way up to 4th. First time he's broken into the top 5 tonight. And he's got an affiliated teammate of another Toyota, Tyler Reddick, right there behind him. 4 Toyotas inside the top 6. Actually, all 5 Toyotas that are in this race are in the top 7. So they have not been very strong on the super speedways with the next-gen car, but maybe this new body has worked wonders for them as they are all really kicking butt here tonight in this first dual race at Daytona. Stenhouse, a massive push most of the way through 3 and 4 has allowed him to project from about Ty Gibbs, who was the 4th car in the outside groove, all the way up alongside Martin Truex Jr. As soon as that happened, Larson connected bumpers with Truex once they got off the exit of turn 4, pushes Truex clear again to the start-finish line. Stenhouse doesn't fall quite as far back as what he was. He's still to the inside of Johnson into turn 1, and again getting a big push from Eric Jones. He's going to go up the track a little bit, trying to side draft Kyle Larson. That's going to pull Larson a little bit off of Truex. Not as tightly connected together. Truex going to get a push here from the 5, who is getting a push as well from the 84 of Jimmy Johnson. Stenhouse maybe a lot more aligned with the 43 of Jones, who was pretty much bump drafting him all the way down that long back straightaway. Let go as they were making the turn into corner number 3. Truex leads at the line, but that time by about a half a car length or less over Stenhouse. Truex has never won on a super speedway in general. It doesn't matter whether it's an exhibition race like this or a points-paying race. Points are on the line for the top 10 finishers again in this one. 10 points for your race winner, 9 points for second, all the way down to 1 point for 10th. 1 point per position in the top 10. Truex drops off the top to the bottom. None of the other Toyotas going down there. I don't know, and I think they're going to be coming to pit road because Johnson moves down to the bottom. Ty Gibbs moves to the bottom in front of the 19 to Truex, and I think we're going to be seeing green flag pit stops this time by. And I would imagine the Toyotas are coming in, and they do. And Tyler Reddick gets into the side of Ty Gibbs as they try to slow down. It looked like there was also contact to the outside between Austin Dillon and Todd Gilliland as Gilliland brushed the wall after contact with the 3. The Toyotas, though, are on pit road safely.
What a last-minute ditch effort down to the pit road. That was close.
Fuel only. And they will hope to all come out together and be able to establish a tight draft right away.
That last-minute call, it may have caught the competition off guard, but it wasn't efficient. These guys are going to come off the pit road. They're going to have to find one another, collect, and there's only 4 of them.
The numbers of only having 4 cars on pit road at once could cost the Toyotas that came to pit road that time. It broke up the lead pack with the jumbledness of cars trying to hop out of line quickly. Couple more come to pit road at the back of the tail end of this long conga line now in the front stretch as Kyle Larson currently leads the race with 19 laps to go. Stenhouse and Austin Dillon are on pit road.
Duel to make up time.
Stenhouse and Dillon may have damage from that scuffle coming off turn 4 the last lap. Regan?
Mike, that's exactly right. They weren't ready until that scuffle happened. All of a sudden, his guys jumped up on the wall. They just asked him, do you need 2 or 4 tires? He said 2. It's all on the right side. And then you see Ricky Stenhouse Jr. behind him. He's been saving fuel the whole time. Hopefully they got enough.
Well, this will be problematic because they don't exactly need pit road together. Should find each other and be able to look at.
So only 2 cars there between Stenhouse and Dillon. That's going to be even worse off than the Toyotas that came to pit road the lap before. Giant pack of Chevys now leading the way. A few Hendrick Motorsports Chevys in there. Both of the 99 and the 1 for the Trackhouse Racing Chevys also in the top 5. So that makes up the 5 cars in the top 5. And all the Fords still on the racetrack as well of Chris Buescher, Ryan Preece, Joey Logano, and Todd Gilliland. Jimmy Johnson leads the 4 Toyotas, and then obviously those 2 Chevys that pitted the lap after them are also on racetrack, but there seems to be a couple seconds of a difference between their 2-car tango and the 4-car draft that goes on just ahead of him, and obviously 4 against 2, they're probably only going to continue to lose time there. I think the hope is that they can get into a bigger pack of cars of the Chevys that still have to hit pit road in the next really lap or 2. Not slowing down this time to the start-finish line. They'll continue on. Lap 17, but any single lap, really from here on out, I would expect the rest of the field to pit. The only Toyota that did not pit of the 5 was Martin Truex Jr., so he's still in that pack with the Chevys. There's a couple tenths of a second between him and then the only Ford that is still up inside the top 6 at least in that lead group with the I keep saying the Collie cars, but the Trackhouse cars and the Hendrick cars is Ty Gilliland. Again, there's a small gap between Truex and Gilliland there. So we'll see. This 5-car group right now seems to be coming in this time. And they are. Led by Kyle Larson. Joey Logano continues to stay out on the racetrack. It looks like the Fords are going to stay out at least 1 more lap. 3 wide onto pit road, but no problems for this group of cars. Truex, the lone Toyota in this group, also pits with the Chevys.
Same for Martin Truex Jr. Let's just get enough fuel to get us to the end of the race. No tires here for Truex. Regan.
5 of Kyle Larson been up front for a little while now. On the radio, he is very happy with the race car. Hasn't said anything other than handling it's very good.
And disaster for Martin Truex. He was stopped in his pit for a long time. The car launched, stalled, they had to push it, and he has lost the draft.
Woes for Truex and super speedways continue. Was doing well tonight, but obviously an error on pit road, not able to get the car fired off properly, has costed him. Late braking by Joey Logano, jumping a long line of those Fords to get onto pit road. We'll see how efficiently they'll get off and as well into their pit boxes here as all 4 of them are in. And none of them are teammates, by the way, of the 4 Fords. All 4 different organizations. And Kyle Larson was the first off of pit road with the Chevys, and he's got both Trackhouse cars behind him. Chastain may have been speeding because he is coming back to pit road a second time.
and pit road speed.
Yep.
Yeah, and that really hurt that first group because he was in the middle of that pack of 5 Chevrolets up in the front, and now you've got the gap from the second, third place car that's going to close up pretty quick. But
Big run by Larson. They're up to speed a lot quicker than the Fords just coming off of pit road. Quickly eating alive the first 3. Logano all by himself on the back straightaway. He's going to move up in front of Larson. Larson is probably going to move down, and we'll see if Logano maybe tries to block that, but he is at a much slower pace. And Kyle Larson slingshots to the inside into turn 3 and will take the lead. Larson, Suarez, Elliott, Bowman, the top 4. Logano trying to hang on behind him. Remember, he's already locked into the pole. The other Fords are drafting up to Joey Logano and are going to try to look to catch the rest of the Chevys. And the Toyotas, led by Jimmy Johnson in the outside groove, have caught the Fords, but they are side by side and need to get organized quickly if they want a quicker chance to get up to the 4 Chevys that lead the way. 14 laps to go in Bluegreen Vacation Duel Race number 1 that will set the inside row up for the Daytona 500. Spotlight on the 2 open drivers racing their way into the 500 in this race. Jimmy Johnson is currently in 8th place, and J.J. Yeley is in 18th. Yeley's 8 seconds off the lead pack. He was not able to come out with any drafting help, so he is going to fall back. He is a little bit ahead of Truex, so maybe he can fall back to him and then latch on to him with the draft. Should stay on the lead lap the rest of the way with only 14 laps left. If we do get a caution, he has a chance, but if we stay green to the end, it looks like Jimmy Johnson should be able to hold on. And Johnson is actually pulled out of line now, maybe aware of the situation to just go behind the Fords, play it safe, and just ensure that you're going to get locked into the 500 here first and foremost. This seems to be the case. 13 laps to go, showing a replay of Truex getting that little bit of a push off from a couple of his crew members, trying to fire out of the box. Full screen commercial break right now on FS1. We'll go through the full field running order rundown following the green flag pit stops at about the 3/4 mark of this race. Kyle Larson is up out ahead of the field. Daniel Suarez is 2nd. Chase Elliott 3rd. Alex Bowman 4th. Joey Logano 5th. Todd Gilliland 6th. Ty Gibbs 7th. Tyler Reddick 8th. Eric Jones 9th. Carson Hocevar is in the top 10 for the first time. His teammate Corey LaJoie in 11th. Daniel Hemrick in 12th. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in 13th, Austin Dillon 14th, Ryan Preece 15th, Chris Buescher 16th, Jimmy Johnson is falling back to 17th place. He's the last car in this lead draft, but as long as he stays in the lead draft, he's still 10 seconds ahead of J.J. Yeley, who is only 1 position behind him in 18th. Martin Truex Jr. 19th after slow coming out of his pit box. Ross Chastain had a pit road speeding penalty, had to come back down for a pass-through. He is in 20th, and Anthony Alfredo still in the race, but is 2 laps down. I think he came onto pit road by himself and obviously lost the lead drafted in the first half of the race as well. So that is your full field running order rundown. We'll take our final ad break of race 1 as we have 12 laps to go in this one. Take you to the finish. You're listening live to Bluegreen Vacation Duel Race number 1 and the starting lineup setup for the inside row of the Daytona 500 on KRC. iRacing 413, Seth Thomas, Earl Arnold Jr. Thanks for tuning in. Definitely wasn't clean for the Toyotas to get onto pit road. That probably costed them time. The lack of numbers probably costed them time. And seems like pitting later these last couple of seasons in this duel tends to be the strategy that gets you out into the lead. We saw that with the Fords last year, and we saw it this year. Caution flag is out for the first time with 10 laps to go, and it is Jimmy Johnson with Austin Dillon.
And Jimmy Johnson is caught up right in the middle of it. He had dropped to the back of the lead draft to protect his qualifying position. He had 8 seconds on Anthony Alfredo back in the field, who had lost the draft. But where Johnson was where Daniel Hemrick got up and into the wall. Here's the melee.
It's all why these groups are starting to connect again and catch one another.
Well, you see the 9 car come up. You see the flames come out of the 54 car right here. You saw the flames come out and it checks the whole lineup.
4 wide.
Yes.
They start checking up. Accordion. Stenhouse gets in the back of Hemrick, and then the worst one was Jimmy Johnson. Now, I will say, not much damage on that car.
He doesn't have a lot of damage, Clint, but if we can get a shot of the right front of Jimmy Johnson's car, it's going to come down to how low that splitter is. But you see all these cars check up, and Jimmy Johnson's at the back of the field, and they just check up harder than he expects and just gets into the side of the 3 as they're trying to avoid the 31. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad on the right front there, Clint.
A little bump from Stenhouse was all it took to get Daniel Hemrick turned to the right into the wall.
Yeah, and that's no fault of Stenhouse there. He's just at the back of the accordion.
Let's ride with Jimmy Johnson. That's the view from the Creed Tour in-car camera.
Coming to 10 to go. Coming to 10 to go.
And guys, I can't tell you how hard it is coming off that banking onto those skid blocks underneath the car. You see his head bouncing around. These cars are very violent when you wreck, and these guys are taking big shots that you can really see in that camera angle.
Again, it was just all the groups coming together from that green flag pit stop that basically had essentially 3 groups. They all merged together. They were coming on them fast, had to check up, big checkups, blocks, 4 wide.
Now, all the cars involved will be in the Daytona 500 with the possible exception of Jimmy Johnson. That's the only open car that was involved. The other 3 are all chartered teams, so they're guaranteed in the race. Larry?
Yeah, I mean, Mike, what they have to do is just keep that 84 car on the lead lap, try to make the repairs. Remember, the only car they're truly racing is the 44 of J.J. Yaley. That's who they're racing for this spot.
3 former Daytona 500 winners caught up in a crash with 10 laps to go in the first of the Bluegreen Vacations Duel at Daytona.
So there you have it, drama now in dual race number 1 in the race to get into the Daytona 500. It's the race before the race, and it is between J.J. Yaley and Jimmy Johnson. Johnson caught up in that 4-car incident, not a lot of damage to the race car, and because J.J. Yaley's towards the tail end of the lead lap, when they get these repairs going for Johnson, he'll only have to move up a couple positions to get by Yaley. Yaley's car has been fast enough to stay in the lead draft here tonight, which is honestly similar to what Greg Biffle was able to do in his dual race a couple of years ago. I think he had a top 10 and finished 8th in his dual race back in 2022 with the same team. So for whatever reason, I wasn't expecting that out of Yaley, mainly because of the late entry. I think coming into this race, maybe not as prepared as a lot of these other teams for the 500. And as well as the fact that not only he was a late entry, but qualifying single car speed last night, he was about a half a second off the next car in front of him in the qualifying order, and he was already towards the back. Obviously started last in this race, but has jumped up a few positions, obviously ahead of those 4 cars, and he was, I think, the second to last car on the lead lap ahead of Truex, who had problems getting off of pit road, and Chastain, who had the speeding penalty. They'll get caught back up as well here on the lead lap. Daniel Hemrick, the only car out of the race following this incident. He will finish last and will start on the inside of row 20 in the 500 on Sunday in 39. So again, Hemrick out. Alfredo will get the free pass and go from 2 laps down to 1 lap down. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. also collected, obviously, in that incident, as well as Austin Dillon and Jimmy Johnson. Johnson's currently scored 15th, Yaley 13th. Sure, Johnson's going to try not to come onto pit road as many times as possible compared to those other cars involved in the incident, so that way he's got a better chance of restarting closer to Yaley. And I would expect these final few laps to be very, very aggressive here at the front of the field. The pack was just starting to get back together into one giant group again, leading up to, obviously, that accordion effect on the outside with the slower cars and the faster cars. 4 wide there for a little bit, splitting around cars, which caused contact to be made in the middle of turns 3 and 4, and obviously that's where that incident ended up taking place. Hit a little bit over the 1,000 view mark on the stream tonight. Appreciate it, everybody. We are still in race 1 out of 2 in tonight's Blue-Green Vacation Duels at Daytona. Dual race number 2 will be coming up about 15 to 20 minutes after dual race number 1, and we will have full coverage for you there. Any driver interviews that we get in between races as well, you'll get to listen into during the Fox broadcast.
Who will be in it? Who will have a chance to win it? Now look at our scoring pylon. Not shown is Anthony Alfredo first, because he was the first of the open cars in qualifying last night. Jimmy Johnson was second. J.J. Yaley was third. In the scenario we have right now, Yaley would make the Daytona 500. Johnson would go home. If Johnson passes him, he's in the race, either racing his way in or falling back on his qualifying time if Alfredo gets past the two of them. Yaley's only chance to be in the 500 is to stay ahead of Jimmy Johnson and Anthony Alfredo.
And now there's only 7 laps to go.
And Alfredo is a lap down
Jimmy
still.
knows
He got the free pass, but he was 2 down. Now he's 1
has
down.
to go and stay where he is or go forwards. And everybody else wants to try to win this race. And right in the middle of all that is Joey Logano trying to protect his car to stay on the front row where he qualified. So
Jimmy Johnson dropped to the back of the lead draft to try to protect his car, and we saw how that worked out. Watch Joey Logano in the 22 here on this replay.
for why it's tough here, Clint.
That's closer than I want to be, especially when I got to call Roger Penske and tell him he ain't going to believe this, boss. I can't deliver on that pole. All right. If you're a Jimmy Johnson fan, we're not out of this thing. I don't think the damage, old Debbie Downer here, Kevin, thought it had more damage on it. I think Clint thinks it's fine. We just got to, all right, we got a choose cone rule. Do you want to be in the same line as this 44? Do you want to try to get out of it? We got to pass him. Got to get in front of him, Kevin.
Well, right now, the first thing I can tell you is the crew worked on the car none. So that means there is no damage from the pit stop. We've already chose our lane here, so we gotta just start at the tail of where they are. So he has to go, and he has to find that 44 quickly. But as fast as his car has been, I think he can do it. What do you think?
I think there's a little more smoke than usual out that left tailpipe of Jimmy Johnson's car.
I think I've never seen a 7-time champion and a Hall of Famer this nervous ever.
Yeah.
It'll be 6 to go when they come back to the line, and the race is 44 J.J. Yaley, the Aqua car against
6 laps to go in dual race number 1 at Daytona. Side by side at the front of the field between Daniel Suarez and Kyle Larson, who are on the front row, and the race within the race is the battle to get into the Daytona 500 between J.J. Yaley, who restarted 13th, and Jimmy Johnson, who restarted 17th. Gridlock 2x2 for right now between the cars at the front of the field. Larson's got a teammate of Chase Elliott pushing him from behind, and Elliott getting pushed simultaneously from behind by Carson Hocevar in the 77, who has made his way up inside the top 5. Hocevar will be making his first career Daytona 500 start. He's already in the show in one of the chartered rides for this weekend. Looking to make some moves here at the front to try to get a win in an exhibition race in his debut with Spire Motorsports. Leader at the lap, that last time by was Suarez by inches over Kyle Larson. In fact, 1/1000th of a second was the difference at the line between Suarez and Larson. Yaley and Johnson are gridlocked for position right now, 15 and 16, as they go back and forth on the pylon. Johnson's in the inside groove, and J.J. Yaley is on the outside of him as they're side by side. Big contact made in the middle of the pack between Logano and it looked like Carson Hocevar. Some smoke there down the back straightaway. Not sure exactly what happened, but contact was made. Everybody stays in their respected lanes. And we continue onward with 4 to go in dual race number 1. Suarez again gonna lead that lap by 1/1000th of a second. Actually, it was Kyle Larson who led that lap at the line that time. Trading by 1/1000th of a second, 2 laps in a row. Both Johnson and Yaley have now fallen off the lead draft after the contact made in front of them, stacking both lines up on the back straightaway. And as a result of that, it may be harder for Johnson to try to pull past Yaley. Yaley threw a block in the middle of the tri-oval, I guess, on Johnson as well, down to the double yellow line. Another reason why they have lost the draft of this lead pack, but they run nose to tail, and Yaley now still getting a little bit of a head of steam from the pack in front of him, and I'm sure JJ will be soon to follow. He's still got a car in line behind him of Todd Gilliland also in the mix. Larson will lead by half a car length, maybe just more than that, over Suarez. 2 laps to go in dual race number 1. Make that 3 to go, 3 laps to go in dual race number 1. So 3 to go through turns 1 and 2. Larson on the outside and Daniel Suarez on the bottom. Suarez has Ty Gibbs and Joey Logano behind him, and on the outside behind Larson is Chase Elliott and still Carson Hocevar. Johnson to the inside will get past Yaley. Yaley side drafting him just a little bit. Chastain is the car in front of Yaley, and in front of Johnson it is Martin Truex Jr. So there's a little bit of a manufacturer alliance there, but there's nowhere to go with, again, over 15 cars in front of both of these at the front of the field, just hoping that they all stay in a line. They continue side by side. At the line that time, Johnson a nose ahead of Yaley. 2 to go now for Larson and Suarez at the very front of the field as they are also gridlocked. Speeds at upwards of nearly 200 miles per hour. Mid-corner speed still carrying about 190 plus. Johnson moving ahead of Yaley just a little bit, back straightaway. The outside projects forward and Yaley gets back alongside Johnson again. Front of the field, Chase Elliott aggressively pushing Larson into 3. Same goes for Gibbs on Suarez. Suarez trying to clear on Larson, but Larson will side draft his right rear corner panel, and they still stay door-to-door off turn 4. White flag in the air, 1 lap to go, sponsored by Credit One Bank, this time by Johnson all over the left rear corner panel of Yaley, trying to stay door-to-door with him. And now Yaley's clear, and Johnson has to pull to the outside behind Yaley at the tail end of the outside lane in this pack of cars. Can Johnson find his way around J.J. Yaley? We'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Elliott moved out of line behind his teammate Larson. He pulls to the inside, and now it's a Chase Elliott versus Kyle Larson show. Reddick is going to pull clear. He moves down in front of Elliott, and he moves to the inside of Larson for the race lead. Larson's got his teammate Bowman behind him. Larson makes a big save at the front of the field. That stacks up Yaley to go to the outside. Johnson into the middle will push Chastain off turn 4. Race winner is going to be Tyler Reddick, and Jimmy Johnson's going to get into the show as they bust his way past the 44 of Yaley in the middle of the tri-oval. Johnson's in the show, and Tyler Reddick is going to win dual race number 1. A last lap pass by both of those drivers to get by the 2 cars they needed to get by in their current scenarios. We'll have to see a replay of that move from Reddick, but I think the contact between the 5 and the 48 in the middle of the corner where Bowman tried to push Larson, Larson got loose. Went to the outside, they split underneath him 3 wide. And that allowed for Reddick, who had made the move on the back straightaway, to pull out of line behind Larson, get underneath him into turn 3, get the push from Elliott. Obviously, he didn't get loose and was able to keep his momentum up and lead by a full car length or so back to the line. 56 1/1000ths of a second margin of victory for Reddick over Elliott, who did pull alongside Reddick on the outside, but the timing was too late for him to make the move for the win, and Tyler Reddick is going to get his first career dual race win at Daytona. A little loose there for Larson. Then it was 3 wide between Bowman, Elliott, Larson off turn 4. Elliott broke free after a push from the 77 of Hocevar. Cleared the 48, moved up, had a run on Reddick, but it was just too late at that time. Reddick didn't really have to block, and nearly a car length, Tyler Reddick is going to win dual race number 1. Now they're showing a replay of Yaley and Johnson. In the midst of Larson getting loose, it stacked up the outside groove. Yaley pulled out of the outside into the 3rd lane up near the wall. Johnson stayed in that 2nd or middle groove behind Chastain, who didn't move at all either. And Yaley, just unfortunate set of circumstance, thought a wreck might have been happening in front of him, so that's why he jumped up. And instead kind of threw himself out of line and didn't have any extra help both in front and behind him, and allowed for Johnson to stay in the draft, pull past Yaley. Johnson ends up with a 12th place finish. But again, good enough to get into the show. A nerve-wracking situation there for any Jimmy Johnson fans, but your guy is in the show. Congratulations to Johnson. He's going up to congratulate Yaley. And unfortunately for J.J. Yaley, he will miss his second Daytona 500 in the last 3 years. Here's your race winner, Tyler Reddick on the front stretch.
500.
That was pretty good. That was way more pressure than I ever wanted. Yeah. Good job, guys. Thank you.
And J.J. Yaley gave it a great fight, a great battle, had that energy, and had made the only move he could. Came up just that much short. Regan Smith.
Well, Tyler Reddick seemingly out of nowhere at the end of that race. You start 19th, you finished first. How good does it feel to go into the weekend with this win in the duel?
Yeah, it's a great way to start off the weekend. And this thing is a beast. And it's a great way to kick off the brand new product that SUV Scott. So go out and get some hard tea, have a good time tonight. I know we are.
Tyler Reddick wins duel number 1.
And Jimmy Johnson, he was nervous coming in, never been in this situation before, Jimmy. It almost looked like you were out of it, and then you weren't. Can you put this race into perspective for us?
I can. I've never been in a position like this before, and I have such a greater appreciation for everyone before me that's tried to race their way in. And although there's only 6 more cars, I know at one time there were many more, but it's very stressful. Very thankful that we got this car on Toyota in the race. I knew the first half of the race was going too easy. I knew there'd be a challenge thrown at us, and we got it just in time. So hats off to J.J. Yaley. Put up a heck of a fight, had a very competitive car, and we were just in the right spot at the right time when the checker fell.
Congratulations, Jimmy Johnson, Daytona 500 for the 21st time in his career, Mike.
Thanks, Jamie. And I agree. I'm a J.J. Yaley fan. That was one heck of a battle.
And if you couldn't hear the adrenaline and emotion in Jimmy Johnson's voice, you weren't paying attention. But I tell you, that's something he's never been through before in his life.
All falls. Duel 1 goes to Tyler Reddick, but we're only halfway through setting the starting lineup for Sunday's Daytona 500.
60-lap race in the books. Another 60-lap race still to go here this evening. Don't go anywhere. You'll be listening live to duel race number 2 on KRC. We'll go through the finishing results of this first duel race, though, before we get into the predictions here for duel race number 2. Again, this first duel race sets up the inside line for the Daytona 500 on Sunday. Tyler Reddick gets the win by 56 one-thousandths of a second over Chase Elliott. Elliott was my pick to win the race, and he was also tied for you guys, the fans' pick to win the race based off the polls in the community tab. You can still vote for who you want to win duel race number 2 before that starts as well in the community tab if you have not yet voted there. But anyway, came up just short for both of us. Second place, had a good run there, was up in contention pretty much the whole time. I don't think he actually ended up leading any laps, but obviously was up towards the front here towards the end. Gets a second place run. That means he'll be starting in 6th place fifth place rather, on Sunday in the 500. Reddick with the win in the race will start off as the points leader, actually, as he is the first driver to receive 10 regular season points on the season. The winner of duel race number 2 will also get 10 points, but as for Reddick, he will be starting 3rd in the Daytona 500, and obviously the highest starting position for any Toyota on Sunday's Great American Race. Alex Bowman ends up 3rd, pretty good run in a duel race where he doesn't usually have good runs considering he qualifies on the front row, kind of drops to the back early. Not in that situation here this season, and although he wasn't up towards the front for a large portion of this race, following green flag pit stops, he was in a great position and stayed inside the top 5 on that last race start, finishes 3rd. So he'll be starting 7th in the Daytona 500. Starting in the top 10 in his first career Daytona 500 will be Carson Hocevar, who had a gnarly save on the back straightaway after making contact with Ty Gibbs. But he was able to keep going in the right direction. Not sure exactly what happened between him and Gibbs making that door-to-door contact in the middle of the pack there in the closing laps. But again, they both kept going in the right direction. Carson Hocevar ends up finishing 4th in his first career duel race at Daytona. Eric Jones with the top 5 had a solid night, came from deep in the field to leading quite a few laps in this race, was right behind Stenhouse, who led, I believe, the most laps in this race tonight. And there you have it. Eric Jones ends up with the top 5 in this duel. Daniel Suarez finishes in 6th, pole sitter for the 500. Joey Logano actually stayed in this thing, and although he fell to the back early with the lack of number and Fords in duel race number 1, he was able to get himself back inside the top 10 late on that final restart. Comes home 7th, but again, will still start 1st for the 500. Ty Gibbs finishes in 8th place in this one. Kyle Larson's going to end up finishing in 9th after being in contention pretty much the entire race as well. Was inside the top 5 for the majority of it. As we've seen with Larson on the super speedways in the next-gen car, I'd say he's been doing very well for himself, all things considered, but still ends up in a situation just like last year where he was up in contention on the final lap of his duel. Something happened in front of him last year. This time it was him getting out of line after getting loose after contact from behind on a bump draft in the middle of the corner with his teammate Bowman. Bowman was able to stay in the gas, bring it home 3rd. Larson fell back a few spots, still get the top 10 and 9th, gets some points out of the day. Chris Buescher ends up in 10th place, 2nd highest finishing Ford. Ross Chastain 11th, Jimmy Johnson 12th. A dramatic last lap pass to get by J.J. Yaley, and actually a couple extra positions out of that final lap as well for him to finish in 12th, which means he will be starting in 23rd for the Daytona 500 Sunday afternoon. Ryan Preece will finish 13th. Martin Truex Jr. 14th, led quite a few laps in this race as well. Slow getting off of pit road during the green flag stops in the middle going to the race. Corey LaJoie ends up 15th. J.J. Yaley 16th, but unfortunately will not make the Daytona 500. And as for J.J. Yaley, obviously heading home early, great effort, valiant effort, was battling Johnson very aggressively there down the stretch, just comes up a little bit short after getting out of line there on that final lap through 3 and 4 and not having any extra drafting help both in front and behind him. Johnson stayed in line, and that's how he was able to pass after things got jumbled up when Larson got loose at the front of the field, as I mentioned, after contact from behind from Alex Bowman. Todd Gilliland comes home 17th. Not as strong of a run as what he had last year in the duel, but was looking good. Actually was the highest running Ford for a large portion of this race, but he was the last of the 4 Fords. Again, 17th for him. Austin Dillon, 18th place. He had a little bit of contact in the midst of green flag pit stops with Todd Gilliland. I think that's why they ended up at the back of the pack. They had to repair extra damage when they were down on pit road. Anthony Alfredo ended up 1 lap down in 19th. He got the free pass with that lone caution. Goes from 2 laps down to 1 lap down. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. ended up out of the race following that incident. Obviously, the 4-car crash, the only caution, which ended up coming out at lap 52 of 60. So Stenhouse will be going to a backup car more than likely for the 500. Remember, he started 31st deep in the field last season, though it was with a primary car, and was still able to win the Daytona 500. So we'll see if he can come from the back to try to go back-to-back again this year. He led quite a few laps, so hopefully that backup car is as strong as the primary. And Daniel Hemrick rounds out the field. He had probably the hardest hit of any in that 4-car crash. DNF'd as well, ends up last, will start 39th in the Daytona 500, also in a backup car on Sunday. Average race speed in this one with just the 1 caution ended up being 169.24 miles per hour. Here is J.J. Yaley and his words following his fight with Johnson.
Obviously it was exciting. I was worried when they dropped the green that we were going to have a hard time keeping up with the draft. Hendrick put this car together. It drove fantastic, had a lot of speed in the draft. And, like I said, we're just riding, take my time. I had to be on the outside, the inside. It killed my momentum. Then obviously what happened in the 84th, got a caution, got a break. The car just didn't have good acceleration and restarts. But, side by side coming to, 2-3 to go, thought we were in really good shape. Going into turn 3, I'm not counting my chickens, but I was getting close, and then saw there was some contact. Someone in the middle lost a lot of momentum, and I just made a split-second decision to go the outside, carry the momentum, clear him, at least make the racetrack too wide to where he couldn't pass, and he stayed in the middle. The 19 pushed him. The momentum just carried him all the way to the checkered flag, and it sucks. 2 years ago we were close, and just couldn't get it.
What a bummer. I want to see Jimmy Johnson's.
So I went through the full finishing order. Also, total time in this race, 53 minutes and 34 seconds with that 1 caution. Most laps led actually went to Kyle Larson. He led 4 different times for 20 laps, which was officially 1/3 of this race. Stenhouse led 15 laps. Martin Truex Jr. 14 were the 3 highest lap leaders in this one. 5 laps led for Eric Jones early in the going. Several drivers led 2 laps, including Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez. Tyler Reddick led just 1 lap, which was the last lap in his victory in this first duel. Todd Gilliland led 1 lap, and Corey LaJoie also led 1 lap along the way. So in total, we ended up having 9 different drivers lead at least 1 lap. And with those 9 drivers, we ended up also having 17 lead changes. So in a 60-lap duel race, ended up having 17 lead changes with 9 different leaders. Very competitive race here in this one. and action-packed to say the least. All the way through, there weren't really any dull points at any point in time during that 60-lap heat, and we've got another 60 laps coming up, and hopefully it'll be just as exciting and as thrilling down the stretch, both for the drive to make it into the Daytona 500 as well as the drive to win the race. So last lap pass for both of those. They're late in that one. Derek Montgomery, Robert Goodrich, Greg Kleckler, thanks for tuning into the stream. And Jimmy Johnson races his way in. JJ Yaley will not make the Daytona 500 on Sunday. Pablo Shuttlesworth, not sure what he was saying in the chat there. But thanks for tuning in nonetheless. Michael Ruiz, thanks for tuning into the stream as well. Again, one race down, one more still to go. Can you promote the channel in the pocket? Promote the channel anywhere. Tell your friends, tell your family, anybody who's interested in the sport of NASCAR, tune in every weekend right here. And we got more streams this week, obviously, compared to most other weeks during the season, with this being Speed Weeks at Daytona, more on-track action throughout the course of the weekend. Truck Series race tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. There is rain in the forecast Saturday and Sunday, so subject to change, but the ARCA and Xfinity races will be taking place Saturday afternoon, 1:30 p.m. for 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time for ARCA, Xfinity Series at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And as of right now, we're scheduled to go live for the Daytona 500 Sunday at 1:30. But again, I saw there's a 100% chance of rain. I guess a half an inch of rain on Sunday. So it's not looking very likely for the weather forecast for Sunday and particularly Saturday as well. We'll see how that goes in the coming days. That could change. But I'll keep you updated in the community tab throughout the course of the weekend if times change. Here's Chase Elliott following his run.
Locked in from qualifying setup-wise and stuff, so I thought our car drove pretty good, considering everything that you try to do to go fast for a lap. So I was pleased. I thought we had a good night of execution, put ourselves in a good position there, and came up a little short. But I thought overall it was a solid effort, and kept the car in one piece, which is a big deal, I feel like, for Sunday. So looking forward to it.
Thanks, Chase. Good luck.
And Chase Elliott finishing second, teammate Bowman finishing third. Right there, you got William Byron. He's getting ready for duel number 2. He is going to roll off third in that race. We'll be right back here on Race Day.
All right, we'll take a quick ad break ourselves here while we're in between races. Once again, be sure to hit that like button if you haven't yet. Subscribe for more daily NASCAR content, and we'll get geared up and ready to go here for duel race number 2 at Daytona. Predictions on the other side of our break. You're listening live on KRC. We are growing ever so closely to more views here tonight than what we had during Daytona 500 qualifying last night. I could have probably expected that, but if you're wondering about qualifying for the rest of the season, I will be doing live commentary every weekend for NASCAR Cup Series practice of qualifying, and then as well the races for the NASCAR Cup Series, as well as races for the Xfinity and Truck Series. I'm doing ARCA this week because it's Speed Week at Daytona, but don't plan on doing any more ARCA races throughout the course of the season, at least as of right now, full-time at least, like with the main 3 series in NASCAR. But definitely have some action. There is no rain in the forecast tomorrow night for the Truck Series, so I can guarantee you that 7:30 we will be live for that race, again, Eastern Time tomorrow. I'm not sure if I have to log out of here to get the duel race number 2 lineup on, or if that's automatically going to change. Let me refresh the page real quick. Not sure how long it's going to be before they get that second race updated. But I'm sure we'll have it before the start. Yeah, it looks like they still have duel number 1 on our screen right now. I'm sure they'll change duel to duel 2 here eventually. It's not the finishing order either. It's with 5 to go for some reason. That's right. I'll just log out for right now. And you can see at least the top finishers from duel race number 1 on the screen while I talk about duel race number 2. We'll go through the starting lineup in a little bit, but just like I did with duel race number 1, kind of explored out a few drivers who I think are the favorites to win this race. Again, based off of how dual race number 1 went and how my predictions ended up going, I thought Joey Logano would have a pretty strong car in this one and had probably the best chance of any of the Fords to get the win despite qualifying on the pole for the 500, assuming he stayed in the running throughout the course of the race and didn't just drop to the back. He was at the back at one point in time. I don't think it was intentional. Still ended up finishing 7th. Not bad. My pick to win the race, Chase Elliott, ended up a close 2nd place in that one. Again, he was the fan vote to win the race along with Joey Logano. It was a tie in the community tab poll that I put out earlier today between Logano and Elliott for that first dual race. Chris Buescher, who was only 5% of the votes just behind him, ended up finishing in 10th. I thought he was probably the second favorite of the Fords. The long shot, Todd Gilliland, was up towards the front, but had that contact in the middle of the race, ended up finishing 17th, so he was kind of the underdog, I guess, if you will, for this one from my picks. And I was wrong about Toyota in the sense that they showed a lot more speed here today than what they usually do. Another interview here is Bubba Walls, who's getting ready to go for Duel 2.
So, shaping up to be a good night. We'll see what our McDonald's Toyota Camry can do. Got a lot to learn with the new body, but should be another stroll in the park.
Adds that confidence, seeing how good the Toyotas were in that first duel. They came to the front quick.
Yeah, for sure. We try to come up with a game plan. This is a what-if race. These speedway races are what-ifs, right? So it's always changing on the fly. But, yeah, we just got to lock in here. Got a few fast Toyotas in our group, so we'll be fine.
Wallace getting ready for duel number 2 in a minute.
Yeah, I think the problem, though, for dual race number 2 compared to dual race number 1, there's only 4 Toyotas versus the 5. We saw with only 4 Fords that it was a little harder for them to kind of stay in tune with things compared to the amount of Chevys that were in the field. Again, there were 13 Chevrolets in that first race. You're going to see a lot more Fords in race number 2 tonight compared to what race 1 had. But we went through the predictions there from dual race number 1. All the drivers I spotlighted finished in the top 10 except for the underdog pick, and my pick to win finished 2nd. So not bad there. We'll see how I do here for race number 2, trying to strategize and pick how it goes. I did say that was going to be the most aggressive dual race of the 2 here tonight, and it was very aggressive for the most part, I will say. So we'll see if that will stay true here for duel 2. As for dual race number 2, Michael McDowell, his best finish in a duel is 2nd. He is on the pole. If it's going to be anything like Logano, because the car's more trimmed out, he may fall to the back. I think actually McDowell has a better chance of staying up towards the front at least compared to Logano, considering there are more Fords, so they might cut him a little bit more slack and not hang him out to dry necessarily. That includes another Ford on the front row in this one. Both of the other 2 Penske Fords are in this race, and also the Penske-affiliated Ford, Harrison Burton, is also in this race. All of those drivers start inside the top 9 positions, all 4 of them, between McDowell and then the 3 Fords for Penske, or the Wood Brothers Ford, obviously, as well. There's 2 RFK Fords in this race as well, Brad Keselowski and David Ragan. Ragan is one of the open entries. He's already locked into the Daytona 500. I think of the underdog picks, I look at both David Ragan and then also Riley Herbst. I really like Herbst in this one. Led laps with Rick Ware Racing last year in the summer Daytona race. Had a great run there. He actually had 2 top 10s in his 4 Cup starts last season, which were all on super speedways. So he's running up towards the front. I don't think he's going to win this race, but I can see him up in contention and at least getting a top 10 finish out of this one with the field cut in half as well, and having a good starting spot and having the number of Fords. If he gets on and off of pit road well, if there's green flag stops, I think he's got a good shot to have a solid run. So I guess the underdog pick for me is Herbst, but David Ragan and Brad Keselowski, I would imagine, will come from the back towards the front in this one at some point in time. Keselowski won his duel back in 2022. So, yeah, again, a lot of Fords in this race. I like the Fords in super speedways, even though they didn't win the first one. Again, they only had 4 of them. This one, they're going to have about a dozen. So they have over half the field being Fords in this one. I like their chances. Toyota's not going to have as many number in the numbers game. I also didn't think that they were going to run very well in the first race, and they still did. Even though I like the Fords, I took Chase Elliott to win, again, because I felt he was the best Chevy in that first race to potentially get a win. There are 2 Chevys in this race that I like potentially getting the win, and that would be the 2 drivers in row 2, William Byron and Kyle Busch. Busch was very strong in the super speedways last year. He won at Talladega, was leading the majority of his dual race before getting wrecked by Daniel Suarez with about 20 to go, and obviously was leading late in the Daytona 500 as well. So Kyle Busch has been very strong super speedways with RCR. He's got a good starting spot for this one. He was very fast during Speed Week at Daytona last year. I think he has a good run this year. He was also a 3-time Duel winner in 2009, 2013, and 2016. Byron, former Duel winner, 2020. That wasn't with the Next Gen car, but he has been good on Super Speedway still with the Next Gen. He does have another win at Daytona in the Gen 6 era. His first career win came in the Summer Daytona race as well, which would have been, got to think back correctly here, the same year, 2020, that he won the Duel. But I still expect him to have a pretty solid run. There are less Chevys in this one than in the first race. So even though I took Chase Elliott, who was a Chevy, to win in the first race, I think the lack of Chevys is going to be tough for Byron and Busch, which is why I'm going to go with a Ford to win this race in particular. Ryan Blaney, who I didn't really mention too much, is probably the best driver statistically in this Duel race based off of prior Duel race success and just overall success on super speedways. I know Denny Hamlin's in it, but again, lack of Toyotas. He starts deeper in the field. Ryan Blaney is only a one-time Duel winner back in 2018, but in 9 career Duel races, he's finished 6th or better 7 times. That's a ridiculous stat. I know the field's cut in half, but still, I mean, no other driver's got a stat line like that on super speedways in general. Again, 6th or better for Blaney in 7 of his 9 career Duel races. He has a Duel race win. He's won at Daytona in the summer race just a couple years ago, 2021. And with the next-gen car, he's been very good super speedways and got his first win with the next-gen car in the last super speedway race that we had with the next-gen Talladega in the fall last season. So I think Blaney's a strong candidate. I'm going to go with his teammate, Austin Cindric, to win the race. Yes, I mentioned Herbst was a good sleeper / underdog pick for this one. But get this, Austin Cindric has finished 2nd in both Duel races that he has ran in his NASCAR Cup Series career. 2022, the year he won the Daytona 500, led laps, finished 2nd in his Duel. 2023, last year's Duel race, he finished 2nd in his Duel. Didn't lead as many laps, but was up in contention the whole time. With the Fords being as strong as they have been with the super speedways, I know it's a different body. We're going to really get the test to see if that theory will stay true this weekend in this race in particular. Assuming that it will, I think a Ford goes to victory lane, and I'm taking Austin Cindric to win this race. I know he's only got 1 career Cup win, but again, it was at Daytona in the 500 a couple years ago. He's been very good here. Not only he won the Daytona 500, he finished 2nd in the summer race in 2022, 2nd in both Duel races here. He's very good at Daytona. The stats, say what they do, and the stats say what they do. So taking Austin Cindric, an underdog pick here to win this Duel race. And he's going to be more aggressive than maybe Michael McDowell of the one starting at the very front, considering McDowell is already locked into the front row, and obviously Austin Cindric is not. Refreshing the page here. I might have to completely log out of NASCAR.com and then log back in to get the lineup on the board for you guys. So let me do that real quick. And then I'll go over the starting lineup very shortly after the fact.
All right, let's go to row 3. Harrison Burton.
Actually, you know what? We'll go with the starting lineup right now as I'm pulling this up, because apparently they're doing it on Fox, and I want to do it for you guys because I got all my notes together earlier today for this. So let me get that up on screen. It might not have transitioned yet from Duel Race 1 to Duel Race 2. I have to go somewhere else. Let me log back out of that again. Let's go Daytona schedule. Might have to find Duel Race 2 specifically and then go from there. Approximately 8:45. I'll tell you what, they're like right on the money with that. It's 8:41 and they're on the warm-up laps. So I have enough time to get through the starting lineup. I'll read it off and then try to get this leaderboard up for you guys visually as soon as possible. Starting on the front row here for Duel Race number 2 at Daytona tonight, Michael McDowell, after qualifying 2nd for the 500 last night, is obviously going to be on the pole here for Duel 2. Starting second, also on the front row, Austin Cindric. I mentioned already that the best duel finish for McDowell was 2 seasons ago in 2022, where he finished second, and Cindric second in both of his career duel races at Daytona. Byron, the 2020 duel race winner, will be on the inside of row 2, and Kyle Busch, 3-time duel winner in 2009, 2013, and 2016, will be on the outside of row 2. Harrison Burton and Riley Herbst making up row 3. Burton's best duel finish, third. 39th in his only 2 duels, top 10s there. And Herbst, 2 top 10s in his 4 career Cup starts on super speedways last season. Chase Briscoe, Noah Gragson in row number 2. Gragson 11th in his lone duel last season. Best duel finish for Briscoe, 4th in 2022. Ryan Blaney and AJ Allmendinger making up row 5. Blaney again 6th or better in 7 of his 9 career duel races, including a 2018 win. And he is the defending champion, so trying to get back to victory lane here early in the 2024 season. AJ Allmendinger, his best duel finish back in 2014 with JTG Doherty Racing, ended up 7th in that race. Josh Berry, Brad Keselowski making up row number 6. Keselowski, the 2022 duel winner, and Josh Berry making his first duel start and his first Daytona 500 start this weekend. David Reagan, Bubba Wallace making up row number 7. Wallace second in his duel race in 2022. That's his best career finish in this race. And David Reagan's best duel finish in 2008 with RFK at the time Roush Fenway Racing. It was a 6th place run. Back with RFK in the 60 car this weekend. Justin Haley and Christopher Bell in row 8. Bell second in his duel races in both 2021 and 2023. Has yet to win a duel, but those are his best finishes in this race. Justin Haley, no top 10s in duels despite a very successful career in the Xfinity Series and super speedways and at Daytona, trying to have more success on the Cup side. He has during the points-paying races, or the scheduled points-paying races, but in this race in particular, again, no top 10s in 3 duels in his Cup career. Denny Hamlin, Zane Smith in row 9. Hamlin is a 3-time duel winner, but starting deep in the field today. His duel wins came in 2008, 2014, and 2017. He's also a 3-time Daytona 500 winner. Zane Smith, 8th in his lone duel, which was last season in 2023. In row 10, John Hunter Nemechek in the 42 for Legacy Motor Club will start in his second career duel. His first one was back in 2020 in his only full-time Cup season. He finished 12th in that duel race. BJ McLeod and Kaz Grala are the only 2 cars that are open entries trying to race their way into the Daytona 500 in this second race. McLeod on the outside of row 10 is trying to go for his 6th career Daytona 500 start. And for Kaz Grala, who was in this situation just 2 years ago, also finds himself in a situation again where he has to race his way in. He had a last lap pass to beat Yaley in 2022 to get in to the Daytona 500. He is going to have to pass McLeod, hopefully not on the last lap, to get into his 3rd career Daytona 500 this weekend if he can do a good enough job here tonight. Still 63 degrees at the Daytona International Speedway. Clear skies through the rest of the night. Not that heavy in the wind, 6 miles per hour when you consider Daytona is on the shore. Usually it's a lot heavier than that. Obviously, the fuel window will also be the same compared to race 1, 40 to 44 laps. We saw those green flag pit stops pretty much take place between that window, so pretty spot on the Fox graphic. Pit road speed still 55 miles per hour. The only speeding penalty from Duel 1 during green flag stops came from Ross Chastain. That's part of the reason why he finished in the back half of the field, and same distance obviously applies here as well from duel race number 1 to duel race number 2. Which would be 60 laps, 150 miles. Just working their way off turn 2 right now. I've got the raw feed up on the leaderboard right now. I finally found it. Race has not quite yet started, but we'll be getting going here in probably 60 seconds or less. Pace car leading the field, just getting into turn 3 right now. There is the full leaderboard on the screen once again. My pick is Austin Cindric to win this race. Go into the community tab real quickly on the channel before this thing gets underway, and the fan vote at 61 votes, a lot more votes here in the second race compared to race number 1. You guys think Kyle Busch is going to win duel race number 2? Not a bad pick. I think he is definitely one of the best Chevys in this race, probably the best Chevy to win the race here today. But 34% of the 61 votes say Kyle Busch will win. 25% went for William Byron, 16% for somebody other than Byron Busch, Blaney or Keselowski, then Blaney at 13%, and 11% for Keselowski. So we had the same pick in race 1. Race 2, it looks like we're going to have a different pick. I've got Austin Cindric. You guys got Kyle Busch. They both start inside the top 4. So again, one race down, one race to go here tonight. Thrilling first race. I'm sure we're going to have another thrilling second race. It's Daytona. What's not thrilling at Daytona? Other than the 2000 and 2013 Daytona 500s, it's usually pretty thrilling at Daytona. Green flag is in the air. McDowell will elect the outside, which was different from pole winner in dual race number 1, which was Logano. He took the inside. Good launch for McDowell. Didn't need a push from Busch. Covers the inside on Cindric quickly. Busch doesn't have any help. And he is going to fall to 4th before dropping to the bottom lane behind William Byron. First car on the outside looks to be Riley Herbst, who is back around 6th or 7th place. Train on the bottom here in the early going. McDowell comes up off the double yellow line on the back straightaway just a little bit. Austin Cindric giving him a tap. Set sail early. So the field rolls into turns 3 and 4. Keselowski all by himself in a third line on the outside. Drops to the tail end of that second or outside groove now. At the tail end of the pack. And at least in the get up to speed lap, both BJ McLeod and Kaz Grala still in the main draft. And the pole sitter, Logano, did not lead lap 1 in duel 1. Pole sitter in duel 2, Michael McDowell, will lead the first lap here. Logano only led 2 laps in that first duel entirely. It was not the first one. McDowell looking to already lead more laps than Logano did in his first duel in the early laps of duel 2. Once again, David Reagan qualified on time for the Daytona 500 last night, so the 2 drivers vouching for that final spot to get into the Daytona 500 through Duel 2 will be the 78 of BJ McLeod and the 36 of Kaz Grala. 78 car, Live Fast Motorsport car, not in this situation usually. He is already locked into the show with having a charter, sold that charter towards the end of last NASCAR Cup Series season, so he is an unchartered entry, unsponsored to this point this weekend. Hopefully he makes the show and is able to find some sponsorship throughout the rest of the weekend. And as for Kaz Grala, the 36 car qualified for the Daytona 500 last year by way of Zane Smith, qualifying them in to the 500 on speed through qualifying. Not the case here, as Kaz Grala was unable to make a qualifying lap last night. Had a mechanical issue. He was the only one of 42 drivers that did not make a time trial lap, which is why he has to both race his way in today and why he started dead last in the field in this race. Fortunately enough for him that BJ McLeod started just 1 position ahead of him in this one, and they are close together at least for the start. And it's also good to see Grala's car running at full speed in the pack as well right now. So there's still no major issues like we saw with Kaz Grala. Connor Daly a season ago with the Money Team, who had a major issue both in qualifying and in the duels, was still able to limp into the 500 with a lot of help, but hopefully no help needed for those two trying to duke it out here today. Great battle to the last lap for that transfer spot in duel race number 1, and hopefully looking to see that here in duel 2. Front 5 cars still clear on the bottom lane right now of the car leading the outside of Riley Herbst. Herbst has an affiliated teammate, or at least another Ford right behind him. Not a affiliation necessarily when you consider the fact that the alliance with Rick Ware Racing is now with RFK, but the 10 car of Noah Gragson taking over for the retired Eric Almirola at SHR. Cindric thought about going to the top ahead of Byron and Busch, who moved off the bottom and to the top side of the racetrack. McDowell covers the outside now instead in front of the 24. And Cindric takes up the bottom with his affiliated teammate at the Wood Brothers, Harrison Burton, right behind him still. Ryan Preece also in that inside groove. That is the other SHR Ford, the 14 of Chase Briscoe. McDowell pulls back down to the inside once again. And Michael McDowell looking to pull clear off turn 4. Byron was alongside of him there initially when McDowell pulled out of line, but good speed again by the Fords on the bottom. It looks like the front 6 cars on the bottom are all Fords. McDowell, Cindric, Burton, Briscoe, Blaney, Barry are the 6. And then I believe A.J. Allmendinger behind them. 10th of a second margin of lead at the line for McDowell over Byron. Over 1-2 at the start-finish line that last lap. Austin Cindric third, Kyle Busch fourth, and Harrison Burton scored fifth. Busch pushing Byron. Top side of the racetrack. Mid-corner speed currently for Busch at 188 miles per hour. 100% throttle all the way through the corner that time. Didn't get too close to Byron to have to burp it. McDowell leads yet another lap. McDowell has led every one of the 6 completed laps already. Looked like for a second there, the first lap or two, they were maybe going to string single file along the double yellow line on the inside. That was quickly not the case. Once Byron and Busch tried to move up to the outside and make a move to get around the Fords and break them up a little bit more. Some of the other Toyotas in this field are also in the outside lane behind the few Chevys, so just like we saw, well, we didn't really see the Fords and Toyotas work together in that first duel, and I think that was a detriment to the Fords because of how fast the Toyotas actually ended up being. Now the Fords have the majority of the cars, so the Toyotas and Chevys working together in the outside already, maybe more so than what the Fords and the Toyotas did in Duel 1. And William Byron leads his first lap of the race that last time by 4/100ths of a second over Michael McDowell. Wasn't all the way clear, but the bumper out ahead of McDowell's at the line, enough to lead his first lap of his duel. All 21 cars still in this lead draft, and only 9/10ths of a second the difference between first and last. Lap number 9 coming up at the start-finish line this time by. Outside lane making a charge again. Byron going to lead another lap at the line. Busch was actually scored second that time ahead of McDowell. Herbst is still in the outside behind the 8 and the 24. As those cars all moved to the bottom now in front of Michael McDowell once they pulled clear. The 2 cars, the 2 Chevys specifically of Byron and Busch, that is, were the cars that jumped down in front of the 34. So Herbst leads the outside again, which is the second time that has been the case. We'll see if Gragson can push him up to the front this time because he was unable to until the 24 and the 8 moved up in front of him. Busch could move up in front of the 15. The 24 does in the middle of the corner. Now back to the bottom to cover Busch. Off turn 4, we'll see if Herbst continues his momentum. And he will get to the outside of William Byron. Byron will lead that lap at the line, but Herbst is coming. Been excellent on the super speedways in this next-gen car. Last season, the 4 races he ran, again, 2 top 10s, and already up towards the front early after a great starting spot. Showed good single car speed, qualifying himself inside the top dozen, as he would have been 12th overall in qualifying yesterday. Full screen commercial break for the first time of dual race number 2 on FS1. We'll go through the full field running order rundown now through the first 9 laps. William Byron leads. Riley Herbst again in second. Kyle Busch third. Noah Gragson fourth. Michael McDowell fifth. Austin Cindric, my pick to win, in sixth. AJ Allmendinger seventh. Bubba Wallace eighth. Harrison Burton ninth. Christopher Bell is 10th. Zane Smith in 11th. Chase Briscoe 12th. BJ McLeod 13th. Ryan Blaney 14th. John Hunter Nemechek in 15th. David Reagan in 16th. Brad Keselowski 17th, Josh Berry 18th, 19th is Justin Haley, Denny Hamlin in 20th, and Kaz Grala is 21st. The 2 open cars again in this race that are racing to try to get into the Daytona 500 is McLeod, who is again in 13th, and Grala 21st, but again, both cars in the lead pack. You're listening live to Dual Race number 2 on KRC. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Well, maybe not daily necessarily for the time being, but daily for the next couple days as we get through the weekend here for Daytona week on the channel. But be sure to hit subscribe, hit like for more live commentary NASCAR coverage through the rest of the season. Sid Vick, thanks for tuning in. Frank Powers, welcome back. Many others welcome to the stream. We've already surpassed views from last night's stream, and we still have 49 laps to go in Duel 2, so appreciate everybody tuning in on a Thursday night. Still an odd night to have a live commentary stream, but normal by way of speed weeks when you consider the duels have always been on Thursday, at least for my recollection of NASCAR. Maybe back in the 70s and 80s, if they had Daytona dual races, they weren't on Thursdays, but by my recollection, they have been. Riley Herbst, by the way, led his first lap of the race during the commercial break, only for Byron to lead the following lap. Quick average race speed right now of 188.6, which was about the same as where it was for that first race up until, of course, we ended up having that caution with about 8 laps to go. McDowell led the first 7 laps, Byron the next 4. Then Herbst led 1, and now Byron leading another. Remember, Reddick, who won dual race number 1, only led the final lap of his duel.
Race number 2, Riley Herbst, Noah Gregson, William Byron, as you watch them from our aerial coverage provided by Goodyear. Powering every lap, every mile, and every victory on the road ahead, Goodyear. More driven. This field this year is so jumbled up, and I don't just mean race 2. 13 drivers in different places from last year, 11 crew chief changes, 17 spotter changes over the entire field.
Yeah, and the key word there is spotter at this particular race. Learning a new spotter. We talked about Brian Blaney and his situation, but there are several other teams that are in a position to learn their new spotters, and it's so important to get in a rhythm here.
Riley Herbst, little shot there. Noah Gregson.
Pretty treacherous place right off of the exit of turn 4 to be that tight.
Turn 4, you always want that car to be pointed as straight as possible when you come up off the corner, and Noah is being really aggressive in pushing, and Riley has experience. He ran the Super Speedway races last year, did a great job. I raced around him a lot, part-time in the Cup Series, and on all of those races, he ran in the front of the field.
Well, let's go to the other end of the field where are 2 of the RFK Fords, David Reagan and Brad Keselowski. Josh?
Yeah, Brad Keselowski started 12th. You notice he's all the way in the back of the pack at 21st. Checked with the team, told me that's just part of the plan. You'll also notice, of course, his teammate David Reagan right in front of him. It's all part of the plan for RFK.
What do you think about that plan, Clint?
That's the plan?
Well, I don't know.
Stay out of trouble and hope it doesn't find you.
I bet the plan changes after this pit stop, whenever this pit stop is.
A.J. Allmendinger spent last year in the Cup Series, had some success, veteran road racer. He's raced open wheel, he's raced NASCAR. He's going to run the entire Xfinity Series and make selected starts here in the Cup Series, including the 500 on Sunday.
Nothing to lose. No points on the line. He is going for it. Expect it tonight, expect it Sunday.
A new dad since we last raced here. Congratulations to the Allmendingers.
Well, we see the second place car of William Byron there in the 24 and Kyle Busch right behind him. You saw him down the back straightaway, Clint. Like they're like, all right, we gotta go. They did a little bit of pushing and shoving, and that's what you got to do in order to advance that line. And you never know until those flip flaps wave at you. You're doing a good job.
The other thing I've been noticing, I'm watching Bubba Wallace and Christopher Bell, bumper to bumper there. They're just moving to the front slowly but surely. What happened that first race? The first duel, the Toyotas just slowly start showing up.
Let's have a look at the Xfinity fastest lap of this race so far. A familiar number at the top of that chart. Josh Berry, 192.4. So, longtime number 4 driver, Kevin Harvick. Your replacement right there. Replacement's the wrong word, but the fellow who stepped into that seat when you vacated it. What's his job here tonight?
His job is to log laps, and really the pressure is going to be this first green flag pit stop to figure out how to navigate that. I know he's done all that in the Xfinity cars, but this car is different. This Cup car that we've run the last 2 years, it brakes different, it steers different. He just needs to be in the middle of everything, learning and making all the things that he needs to check off of that list happen. And so that means completing the whole race.
Now we're going to see what these Toyotas have on the outside. Saw Noah Gregson move down to that second slot on the inside. Let's see if Bubba Wallace and company can move up, take the lead.
Jamie.
I got to guarantee there's a lot of people very happy in Las Vegas right now. The 2 Vegas kids out front, Riley Herbst, Noah Gregson. These two grew up racing together at the Bullring right outside of Las Vegas Motor Speedway since they were little boys. Now here they are racing side by side at Daytona. And Riley told me, he said, my goal is to get here full time, but I've got to prove myself. He's racing 4 times this year, and he said, I need to win more in Xfinity. But man, he is doing everything he needs to do right now.
He is doing a great job at the head of this field. Now in the battle to get in the race, look who's in 7th place, B.J. McLeod. And that black car doesn't have a single sponsor decal on it. McLeod wants to make the race. Hope that'll find him some sponsorship for Sunday.
Yeah, speaking of doing what you're supposed to do, he's knocking out of the park right now. All systems go. Fast car, making good moves. Riley's going to have a decision to make here. He's going to have a tough time keeping these boys behind him on the outside.
But the problem that he's got right now is now the second place car is clear, so he's got to decide when they make this next run and they pull that outside line back, do I drop and block or do I stay up? And he's chosen to stay up in front of the Toyotas.
Working lap 21. Couple of the young guns, Riley Herbst and Noah Gregson, leading at Daytona.
Once again, Riley Herbst currently your race leader. Bubba Wallace second. Noah Gregson third. Christopher Bell fourth. A.J. Allmendinger rounds out the top 5. Zane Smith in the Spire Motorsports 71 car is in 6th. William Byron 7th. Shout out B.J. McLeod running top 10 early in 8th. Kyle Busch 9th. And Justin Haley rounds out the top 10. Only 2 Fords in the top 10. All of the 5 Chevys in the field in this race. Number 2 are running 5th through 9th. And then 2 Toyotas at the front of Bubba Wallace, Christopher Bell 1st and 3rd. Wallace just led his first lap of the race during this commercial break, while the other 2 Toyotas in the field of John Hunter Nemechek and Denny Hamlin still outside the top 10 in 15th and 17th. As far as the race for the final transfer spot to get into the 500, Kaz Grala and BJ McLeod. Grala in 19th, still in the lead pack, 0.8 of a second off the lead, and McLeod in 7th place, 0.2 of a second off the race lead. And good battle going on between them. All 21 cars still in the lead pack, and only 1 second separates first through last of the 21 car field right now. Take another ad break as they are on a full screen commercial break right now on FS1. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe for more NASCAR content as we take you to the end of Duel Race number 2 tonight. Zane Smith jumping up inside the top 5 now during the commercial break. I pick Austin Cindric back in 13th, but all the Fords staying together right now. The Chevys were the last to pit in that first race. Projected themselves to get up into the lead. It was won by a Toyota, but there also was a restart that ended up taking place after a caution. There was a 6-lap dash to the checker at the end. The only 2 Fords, again, up towards the front of the field. Rick Ware Racing in an SHR Ford. The Penske's, Wood Brothers, and the other SHR Fords in the field. Both RFK Fords also at the back. And the lone front row motorsport car in this race, again, which is Grala, the extra front row motorsport entry. I should say the second of which, Michael McDowell, obviously in this race as well. He started on the pole, and he is still inside the top 10 in 9th. Wasn't up there for very long, but now more Fords starting to crack the top 10 all of a sudden through the commercial break. And now post-commercial break as they are back on FS1. You'll get to listen into a little bit more of the broadcast again.
Riley Herbst, Noah Gregson, the 3 Vegas boys, all right together, 3, 4, 5, and B.J. McLeod right with them. Regan.
William Byron sliding back just a little bit right now in the 9th position. Happy with the race car, but not happy with something inside of the race car.
I can't move my head to see the mirror. That's the only thing I'm pissed off about. Copy that. Just stay in it for us. I'll get you fixed for Sunday.
Well, one thing that's happened over the past couple of years with the concussions and all the things that have happened with the way that these cars wreck, they tighten that head foam up to where you have a minimum clearance that you have beside your helmet. So a lot of these guys are in the car for the first time, feeling that out under race conditions, and sometimes it makes you feel a little bit claustrophobic, sitting in a position that you hadn't been in before.
Well, tell me about that difference between your race seating position and your qualifying seating position last night.
Takes you back to the shop, though. That got set up in the shop, man. I think that's good. I love it. I dig it. Everything's perfect. Take her to the racetrack. Didn't really look at it qualifying. He just looked out the windshield. Now, all of a sudden, oh, no, I can't see out the mirror, which is the most impactful position you have. What's in your mirror is everything. We saw that with Jimmy Johnson.
But that's one of the big reasons that you want to run in this race and do everything you can to try to race it like it's going to be the Daytona 500, to be able to get all those bugs worked out, whether it's handling or mirrors or whatever it is.
Now look at the big guns here. We can mention Byron back in 9th, Kyle Busch in 11th, Ryan Blaney, the champion, 15th, Denny Hamlin, 17th, Brad Keselowski way back there. Is this a case of the champs letting the boys play out front for a while?
Just patience is what I see. It's patience.
I like track position.
Oh, I know. Come on, Clint. I'm trying to build a story here.
But we're turning lap 28, coming on 28 here. Larry's already told us 35, 40, somewhere in there. This is going to pit, and that's going to shake everything up exactly like it did in the first one.
Everyone who's ever listened to this broadcast knows that you're not patient. So
Right.
now you're patient?
No, what I'm telling you is I really want to get to lap 36 and see this.
Yeah. You see Christopher Bell's camera and looking back at Zane Smith. We haven't given Zane a shout out. He's done a great job from deep in the field up into the 4th position.
And he started 18th.
You can brag on him all you want. The car right behind him, BJ McLeod, is the guy. Unbelievable job to get that thing up front. It's awesome to see that.
So last year, McLeod's team had a charter. It was guaranteed in every race. At the end of the season, they sold that charter, and they're going to run a limited schedule as an open car. They've also got a full-time Xfinity team. He's a really good businessman. Love to hear him. We had him up in the booth during qualifying at one race this year. Gave a great explanation of how you try to make it as a smaller team in this sport, and he's done well. He's got a chance to race on Sunday.
And the one thing that I will tell you about BJ McLeod is every driver in this field likes him because he is a genuinely good guy. He loves racing. So when it comes down to, I got to make a choice to push, there's going to be a lot of guys that want to push BJ McLeod into this race.
Now, I sold my charter. I don't probably down here with limited friends and buddies and everything else. Who's going to pit my car here, boys?
And you asked who will pit B.J. McLeod's car? A bunch of guys they found off the road or in the infield? No. Hendrick Motorsports is providing his crew tonight and Sunday.
We'll be fine.
Yep.
All right, 29 laps complete. We're going to take halfway, and you'll see it all and not miss a moment as we go Fox side by side, coming to halfway in Duel number 2.
So Bubba Wallace still leading the way as of right now with an affiliated teammate of Christopher Bell in second place right behind him. Zane Smith up to third place now. Riley Herbst is fourth. BJ McLeod fifth. Noah Gragson sixth. Justin Haley in seventh. Michael McDowell in eighth. AJ Allmendinger ninth. William Byron rounds out the top 10. Austin Cindric in 11th. Kyle Busch in 12th. Harrison Burton 13th. Ryan Blaney 14th. Josh Berry 15th. Brad Keselowski in 16th, Chase Briscoe 17th, Denny Hamlin 18th, David Reagan 19th, John Hunter Nemechek 20th, and Kaz Grala is 21st. 1.27 seconds is the difference between first and last. Grala and McLeod, again, the two open cars trying to battle their way into the Daytona 500 in this race, and David Reagan, the other open car, is already locked into the show based off qualifying time alone. Kaz Grala would have to catch McLeod. McLeod's still in the top 5 right now in 5th. Grala up to 20. It just got by David Reagan at the line the last lap, but he's got 15 more positions to go. Still has time to get there. We're only halfway home. 30 laps down, 30 laps still to go in Duel Race number 2 tonight at Daytona. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more daily NASCAR content if you haven't yet, as we continue our live commentary coverage on this race. We'll take another ad break here, side-by-side commercial break on FS1 for those of you watching there, and we'll continue our second half of Race 2 coverage. coming down to the wire. We are getting very, very close to green flag pit stops. Nope. On the broadcast, Clint Boyer said 36, lap 36, right around there. I would probably lean towards a little bit later than that. We didn't see pit stops start till about lap 40 in the first race. 40 to 44, 45-ish is when we ended up seeing green flag pit stops there. Got to get to the green flag pit stops first, obviously. We have seen in years past that a caution would come out before then. There's a near accident in the process of just trying to get organized to come to pit road. There's quite a bit of contact out on the racetrack when the Toyotas were trying to get to pit road, as they were the first of the group of cars that pitted in Duel 1. Contact was made between Austin Dillon and Todd Gilliland, and that kind of led to both of them not having such great finish in that first race.
If you had B.J. McLeod running in the top 3 at halfway in this duel at Daytona, we'll pour one out, give yourself a pat on the back. How about that?
Looking good so far. Rolling.
Unsponsored, independent driver, trying to make his way into the Daytona 500.
It's all going to come down to the execution of this transition to the pit stop when it happens, in my opinion. It's just going to be the execution of the braking and into the stall and everything that he needs to do to stay with the pack and in the right end of it anyway.
After last night, we all left scratching our heads. Where are the Toyotas? I am sold. Trust me, they're fine, folks. Daytona 500, optimistic. These cars are extremely fast. All of them have marched to the front. Saw it in the first one, a true ecstasy. Bubba Wallace, Bell behind him. Hamlin coming, I promise.
Well, tonight's sequel to that may be Where Are the Fords? They are here in huge numbers, and we thought they might get to the front and dominate. So far, that's not been the case.
Well, Larry, what's changed with both manufacturers?
Yeah, the Toyota and the Ford, complete new body. New Camry for the Toyota, the Ford Dark Horse Mustang. These are really the first competitive race laps of any type they've turned.
And that's why we run the race. You got to get out on the racetrack to see what you have. You can only go through the CFD and the wind tunnel and all those things so many times. The racetrack tells the tale.
Bubba Wallace had only led 3 laps in the dual races before this evening. He's been out front for 14 circuits right now. 7 for Riley Herbst, 6 laps left for Michael McDowell. Jamie.
Michael McDowell started on pole for this race, and he led 6 laps, but he's been slipping back, and he's been radioing to his spotter, tell the 2 of Austin Cindric, I want to drop back. Austin said no, so again, Austin said no, so he's kind of stuck, sitting right where he is with Austin right behind him.
I mean, Austin's not just going to get out of the way so the 34 can drop out of line. I mean, it's just not going to happen. McDowell's just going to have to kind of sit through it. Cindric doesn't want to lose any sort of momentum in the position he is in right now, which is right around 8th place, right behind Michael McDowell inside the top 10. Once again, tomorrow night's NASCAR Truck Series live commentary stream will begin at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can watch the race on Fox Sports 1 or listen and watch this stream live commentary just like you're hearing tonight from me for tomorrow night's NASCAR Truck Series race. Xfinity Series race on Saturday will start at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. ARCA race as well on Saturday at 1:30, again barring rain for both of those, as well as Sunday for the Daytona 500. We'll go live an hour before pre-race, with it being the biggest race of the year, the Daytona 500, as we will start the stream at 1:30 Eastern Time. Again, rain barring any sort of streaming both Saturday, Sunday. I know there is no rain in the forecast, obviously the rest of tonight and tomorrow, so we'll go uninterrupted for the rest of this stream and for tomorrow night's stream for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series race. Almost like Camping World. It's been a couple years since they went away from that. Probably made that mistake a couple times last year and almost made it once already this year. We're more than a year removed now. I shouldn't make that mistake, and I did. B.J. McLeod leading the outside lane right now, and surprisingly still looking fairly strong enough to at least hold side by side with the 51 car of Justin Haley, who is underneath him. Haley, the highest running Ford right now in this race, and third/fourth, depending on where he is at the point of just really running on the racetrack with where B.J. McLeod is. Michael McDowell, the 34 car, is the second one in line, pushing the 78 of B.J. McLeod. Kaz Grala still in the lead draft, but is back in 19th and really hasn't cracked the top 15 at all. McLeod moved up pretty quickly and has settled in inside the top 5 for a while, but Kaz Grala's got to get going, or at least has to get on and off of pit road much more smoothly than the 78 of BJ McLeod if he's going to want a shot to make the 500, as we're down to just 23 laps to go in our second and final dual race here tonight at Daytona. I definitely don't think McLeod's car is strong enough at the very front to lead this outside groove. I noticed the first time he was in the situation, lost a couple car lengths before the Toyotas of Bell and Wallace moved back up again, and then he was able to drive up right behind him and sit in line in third, but leading this outside groove, he seems to lose about a car or two to the inside. It's backed the outside up quite a bit. BJ's still in sixth right now, but that means that there are 4 or 5 cars on the inside that are in front of him on that inside lane, and the more he slips back, the more cars are going to duck out of line to the bottom behind him if they can find a hole, and vice versa. Talked about the number of Fords in this race, but it's just been gridlocked. Wallace and Bell have controlled the pace of this one very early, and my pre-Daytona 500 predictions may change going into the 500 on Sunday, seeing how strong the Toyotas look this weekend. Specifically, the 2 up front right now of Wallace and Bell, and then also in that first race with Tyler Reddick getting the win. I think they could be contenders going into Sunday, which I might not have considered them contenders coming into at least tonight. Didn't have any sort of single car speed in qualifying yesterday, but they were showing great pace in the 500. BJ McLeod at some point in time got shuffled out of line. He is now back to 20th. And him and Kaz Grala now run side by side. Coming up on 20 to go this time by. Still a lot of cars on the bottom. And this is the point in time where we saw green flag pit stops start in dual race number 1. So we'll see if anybody pits here. Nobody this time by, but I would expect everybody to have already made their stops within about 5 laps time from now. Again, Wallace and Bell leading the way, followed by Justin Haley in third, Zane Smith fourth, Riley Herbst in fifth. That's the top 5. Michael McDowell now leading the outside with Austin Cindric just behind him. A lot of the Fords pretty much on the outside groove right now. And McLeod has jumped in line on the bottom, and all of a sudden, Kaz Grala is 2 positions ahead of BJ McLeod. McLeod still in the draft, but now back to 21st, Grala in 19th. Both those cars are on the bottom. I don't think there's a single manufacturer on the outside that is not a Ford, other than potentially looks like Denny Hamlin is on the outside. He's the second to last car on the top. Only 7 cars in total are on the outside groove, which if you do the math, that means that there is 14 of them on the inside, which is why they are projecting themselves forward. McLeod kind of backed that group up. Now that McDowell is out in front of the field, they're just a little bit too far back, and McDowell hasn't been aggressive enough with the side draft, and nor has Austin Cindric been really aggressive enough trying to bump draft him down the straightaways. I'm sure McLeod probably doesn't even want that, considering the fact he's locked into the front row starting spot for the 500, though they did make a little bit of a ground game on the backstretch that time, even without pushing one another, and that may be because the Toyotas could be pitting this time. And that is exactly why they'll pull out of line. The Toyotas are on their way to pit road. Couple Chevys coming down with them as well, and we have our first pit stops of race number 2.
Start with the 20 of Christopher Bell. The only real complaint for him is a little bit free in the tri-oval. As far as the 23 of Bubba Wallace, most laps he's ever led in a duel with 21 in this race. He looks for his first win in the duel.
BJ McLeod has made his stop, trying to make the show, and it looks like most of them will come out together. 2 packs of 5.
Once again, Chastain in dual race 1 was the only one that sped on pit road, so we'll keep an eye for any potential speeding penalties. It looked like about 7 or 8 cars pitted that time by, and more will be coming in here. McDowell, Cindric, a couple other Fords, Josh Berry, Riley Herbst, Chase Briscoe. Big lockup by McDowell. He may have been speeding.
Mike, the 71 is Zane Smith getting ready to make his second start in the Daytona 500 after tonight. He told me earlier that this race right now way less stressful than last year when he had to race in, and it's been that way on the radio. Very calm, hasn't said a word. Jamie?
Austin Cindric, Michael McDowell both pulling their pit box. They've been working together. You saw them line them up on pit road. They want to take care of their tires. Just enough fuel here to make it to the end.
McDowell the first on and the first off of pit road of the group of another 7 or 8 cars that pitted, as we still have about the top 8, it looks like, that have to hit pit road, maybe a little less than that. Top 5 cars still have to hit pit road. Gralla all by himself. He's lost the 4 cars in front of him. The last 4 at the front of the field to pit: Harrison Burton, Ryan Blaney, Brad Keselowski, and it looks like the 60 of David Reagan. And they're all in now.
That'll be a drive-through penalty at pit road speed.
And you see the pack zigging and zagging, trying to get everything formed back up. You got cars that are going fast, cars that are coming out of the pits that are trying to get in front of the other cars, and William Byron in the 24 car.
They were a lot more collected, weren't they? Byron, Bubba Wallace, and Bell all collected pretty tight. They're going to run this group down and make a pass.
Michael McDowell leading the pack for right now. There was a speeding penalty somewhere in there. Didn't hear who for. I would imagine it was Michael McDowell, considering how hard he was on the brakes coming in. The Fords that just came off of pit road, the 4 of Reagan, Burton, Keselowski, Blaney, just getting up to speed right now. Blaney was the first of them to come out of the pits. This was the strategy that a lot of those cars that I just mentioned were actually in at the end of their dual race, which would have been Duel 1 last year. As well as the year before that, where Keselowski is able to get his dual win, and Blaney was in the mix with Cindric late. Down to 16 to go, 15 to go this time by. Cindric pulling out of line to the bottom as he breaks away from the 14 of Chase Briscoe. We'll see if Denny Hamlin goes down to block. He does. Hamlin in second behind McDowell. We'll run through the top 10 quickly. Post green flag pit stops. Michael McDowell back in the lead. Denny Hamlin second. Austin Cindric third. Chase Briscoe fourth. William Byron fifth. Kyle Busch in sixth. Ryan Blaney seventh. A.J. Allmendinger eighth. Brad Keselowski ninth. And Christopher Bell rounds out the top 10. B.J. McLeod in 19th place. Kaz Gralla is scored 20th. Make that 18th for McLeod, 20th for Gralla. Unfortunate thing for Gralla, he is not in the lead pack anymore. So as long as McLeod doesn't have a wreck happen in front of him like what happened to Jimmy Johnson in dual race number 1, he shouldn't have any stress going the rest of the way to get into the Daytona 500. But we are still 14 laps from the finish of this race. Again, Gralla 3 seconds off the lead pack. And McLeod's got to make sure he obviously stays in the lead pack, because Gralla may have more single car speed than him. He could run him down there, but Gralla doesn't have anybody to draft. Zane Smith was the driver who had the speeding penalty, by the way, so that's why he is in last. And he is well behind Gralla, another 20 seconds behind the 36 of Gralla, so he can't even catch up to him and try to draft with him to have any sort of semblance of catching McLeod if he falls out of the draft. Almost a mess there in the tri-oval, and there it is. Blaney hard into the wall. The big one is going to take out over half the field in the middle of the tri-oval. I thought they had it safe for a second, but they did not, and Blaney hits extremely hard. His car's in flames. He came back across the racetrack after getting tagged in the right rear by the 24 of William Byron. Window net is down. Kyle Busch collected a huge wreck. I'm not sure if any of the open cars may have been in it or not. Blaney is out of his race car. Riley Herbst is in it. More than half the field taken out in that crash. With 13 laps to go in dual race number 2 at Daytona. There was a lane change between Byron and Blaney before they got to the start-finish line. There is damage on the right front of McLeod's race car. Hopefully they can get that repaired quickly on pit road. Justin Haley's got some damage. Gralla was so far behind the pack. I know for a fact he doesn't have any damage, and hopefully B.J. McLeod can get that right front fixed. Hopefully it is just the right front tire that is flat. Looks like Keselowski made his way through it. There were 3 cars ahead of them that were already. The wreck basically took place between Blaney and Byron's where it started. They were in 4th and 5th. The top 3 of McDowell, Hamlin, Cindric were in the clear, and it was tough to tell exactly who got out of that behind them. I think everyone from Burton and 10th on back was taken out. Might only have about 9 cars left in this thing. Showing the replay right now. Byron made a move to block Blaney on the outside. That was the first block. So then Blaney goes to the bottom. And in the midst of the trial, it looked like Kyle Busch got into the back of the 24, which is what turned him into the right rear corner panel of Blaney's car. And Blaney obviously projected upwards straight into the wall. Hard, vicious hit for him. Then there was contact there from the 78. Both cars were sliding sideways, and Cloud's door slammed into Blaney's door. And obviously, Blaney will not be able to continue, and hopefully BJ McLeod can to keep his hunt for the 500 on. Very reminiscent of what happened around this point in time in dual race number 1 with Kyle Busch. Unbelievable. And we are under a red flag period now in this race.
Out of Kyle Busch's car, trying to keep from getting into the back of the 24, but the 6 is pushing Kyle Busch so hard that he can't get checked up. You saw the flames come out of the pipes.
Doesn't take much. That movement, as soon as he moved and made it, it was kind of a late block, but it was still a good block. And when Blaney went back down to the bottom, it just stacked them up, and they run them over from behind. You saw them all lift, just like you said. Flames tell all sign when they come out of those pipes that they're lifting, but it accordions fast at 200 miles an hour. This 12 car, Ryan Blaney, he's the one that took the shot. That's a heavy hit. Right into the wall, head on like that. Doesn't get any harder, Kevin.
That is one of the hardest hits that you can take in a race car when you get turned in the middle of the straightaway, right front into the wall. And it is so violent. And I'm so happy to see him put that window down quick. I know the car was on fire and he was in a hurry, but you could hear it in his voice how bad it hurt. You're going to see him shoot up right here.
You hear him go back to the gas, saving grace. Thank goodness for that wall. You saw the energy that it absorbed on that outside safer barrier.
Yeah, there's a couple cars that sneak through there. Yeah, great.
I saw BJ McLeod get hit 4 different times in that melee. At least 11 cars involved with 13 laps to go in Daytona.
Hard, vicious hit in the center of the triangle for Blaney at the worst angle, as it didn't look like that car slowed down whatsoever before making contact. No chance to have that happen. And again, we're under a red flag period for the first time tonight following the big one, which takes place in dual race number 2. We did have one caution in dual race number 1, but it was also a 4-car incident. We didn't have any red flag period for it, no major damage. Did take 2 cars out of the race at the time of Daniel Hemrick and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Jimmy Johnson, who was involved in it despite being one of the open cars, was still able to race his way into the 500. Not a lot of damage for him. I'd say more damage for BJ McLeod of the open cars that were involved in this incident. But the question is going to be, can he continue? And if he does continue, can he get back ahead of Gralla? Our leaderboard is going to update once we get out of this red flag. The field has not crossed the start-finish line yet since the accident, especially if it's taking place in the center of the tri-oval. So the field is parked either on the front stretch right before pit road or on the back straightaway, whatever the case. That's why the leaderboard still has guys that were involved in that wreck that are obviously going to be out of the race, like Byron and Blaney still scored 4th and 5th. By my accounts, the drivers, or at least notable ones that were involved in that wreck, would include Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Kyle Busch. I saw Josh Berry in it. Riley Herbst was obviously in it. BJ McLeod. Justin Haley, I know, had some damage on the right front of his race car. And definitely more cars than that. And I would definitely expect the field to be chopped in half here, if not more than that, following the incident that took place on lap 47. And again, we are under a red flag period. Hopefully everybody is okay. It did seem like everybody did get out of their cars under their own power of those that were collected in the incident. A lot of good cars torn up. Yeah. Saw somebody right when the wreck happened in the chat said, thank goodness for backup cars. And yes, that is the case. And definitely still working on cleanup. Blaney's car trashed. Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Noah Gragson, Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Riley Herbst, Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Justin Haley, and BJ McLeod were all collected in the incident. About a dozen cars, give or take. Maybe a little bit less than that were involved. And the majority of those will definitely be in backup cars, if not all of them, come Sunday. The cars that are parked on the front stretch right now that seem to have no damage, and I don't have a chance to count on that because I cut to a pre-recorded interview with Kevin Harvick, looks like. TJ the Sloth, thanks for tuning in. We always got to bring back the funny incident, scary incident. Jet blower cut out. Talk about the Juan Pablo Montoya incident, 2012. Oddly enough, that was a Monday raced Daytona 500. We could see a Monday raced Daytona 500 this weekend. Could. I hope not, but it may be the case. With a lot of rain in the Daytona area, really most of Florida this coming Sunday. Brian Smith, thanks for tuning into the stream as well tonight. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Most importantly, the subscribe button, but definitely hit the like button as well. Try to get up to 100 likes on tonight's stream. Not sure where we're at right now. I may have to refresh the page. About to find out what I'm at. We're at 83 likes on the stream right now, so try to get that to 100. Usually try to go for 150 to 200 on the Cup Series streams, but obviously this wasn't going to be nearly as long. 260 lap races. It's the equivalent of the full Xfinity Series race by way of laps, so wasn't expecting this thing to carry longer than 3 hours today, and it still seems to be the case even with this red flag period going on right now. So while we're under the red, I'll let you listen into a little bit more of the FS1 booth boys for the races tonight.
Anyway at Atlanta that spring for Richard Childress.
Well, it's been a lot of fun, and you are correct. I was supposed to drive the number 30 AOL car in my first race at Atlanta, so it's interesting and crazy how all those sequences of events played out. But what a piece that we're able to do with all the old footage and some of the things that we found on old VHS tapes and things that they put into that documentary, and go back to how we ended the career to how it started and tie all that stuff together with where we are in life now. So it was a great journey. Wouldn't trade it for much, and I was very fortunate to have some great results to go with it.
Can you believe you beat Jeff Gordon that day in Atlanta? Because I know Jeff Gordon still doesn't believe it.
You know what I can't believe is that we're up here calling a race together, and you called my first one.
It was quite a day.
That makes these getting old. Is that what you were just saying? That was a day.
Everything.
Here's what I love.
Everything in here is an old guy joke.
My favorite part of that whole thing is how you transferred from this angry young man to the guy that you are now. Like those early days when you were mad every week and jumping over cars and in fights. Gosh, I miss that. Can you please bring that back?
It was a good show. I don't know that my body will permit me to do that anymore.
All right, Ryan Blaney is with Josh.
Ryan Blaney, check to release from the Infield Care Center.
getting a push a little bit from the 6 there, and the 24 I saw kind of got messed up out of line. Man, what a frustrating race. Just sitting in line, saving fuel, stuck on the bottom, can't go anywhere. You get back in line, you want to go forward, and we were taking the momentum, whichever the way the momentum was coming, and yeah, just end up wrecked. Thanks, Kyle.
Noah Gregson, released from the care center. Also Riley Herbst after that crash. I was looking at Brad's car, and when he made that contact with Kyle, a lot of flames off the pipes. He too was off the gas trying to get that car slowed.
Look at the list of drivers that were in that wreck. All experienced veteran drivers. They were all making moves. That's Daytona. That's plate style racing, and it's going to happen. It's happened for years, and it's going to continue to happen. It'll happen on Sunday. Might happen by the end of this race. You can't place blame on anybody. They were trying to make moves. Blaney was making a move. Byron was making a move. Those guys were certainly coming up on them. Kevin, your old car won't start.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly why it won't start, but I would tell you that what I would do in the checklist right now. Yeah, he's talking him through his switches, but I would go straight to the main power switch, turn it off. It's like a computer. You got to recycle reboot the whole system, turn it back on, recycle everything, and try to fire it. If not, then I don't know where to go from there. Gonna need somebody smarter than me.
Brian Blaney's car dropped off at his hauler. And another look at that impact in real time, both from our camera there on pit road and from on board.
Oh my gosh.
And now let's go on board.
So fast.
Kevin, you said something earlier in the week about these Gen 7 cars. You said these cars crash really hard.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you see his head bouncing around, and we talked earlier about the foam that they put around the driver's head and his Hans straps. But if we put that in slow motion and we saw that driver's head move forward, it's his whole body. And it is as violent as anything I've ever crashed in my whole career. And NASCAR and the teams have done a great job in implementing the foam and the shorter Hans straps and making sure they do visits to the shop over the winter. And as we slow this down, I want you to just watch his body. Oh, and that's why those headrests are so long. You see the seat move. You see the reason that headrest is so long is when he goes forward like that is to keep his head from going outside. You see his head impacting the foam. And as a driver, I mean, it happens really quick, but it is so violent.
Did a good job letting go on that steering wheel.
Look at the number of shoulder injuries we've seen with these full containment seats all doing their job. It used to be we saw a lot of rib cage injuries with the old seats, but now we're seeing drivers with shoulder surgeries in the off season.
Extremely, a lot of science went into these cars, a lot of safety, but these guys are tough. Saw it with Priest. Look at the wreck that he had here last year. Ryan Blaney, these guys are tough. They're gladiators in these cars. They work out, they train for these. The kid's physically fit, he's a champion, and he'll be ready for Sunday.
And that's why you train. Everybody talks about, this sport doesn't take athletic drivers, and this is why you go through the regimen and the workout and the stretching and everything that you do. It's for those huge, massive impacts like that, so that you don't have the injury to go along with it by being out of shape and not being flexible. But that is as big a hit as you're going to take that Ryan Blaney just took.
10 laps to go, and Kaz Grala is in position now to race into the Daytona 500. He is 7th overall, ahead of David Reagan and B.J. McLeod. Saturday on Fox Primetime Hoops, another chapter in a Big Ten rivalry, as Tyson Walker leads Michigan State in a showdown against Michigan. It all tips off at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Fox and the Fox Sports app. 21 cars started, 16 remain. Half the cars involved in that collision are off the track.
Well, let's talk real quick about backup cars. And usually, I know with Stewart Haas Racing, there might be one backup car in the trailer, but usually in a situation like this, the car, one of the extra cars, when you wreck multiple cars, the extra cars will come from the shop that are semi-prepared to come down to the racetrack. So there will definitely need to be a few race cars that are maybe not in the haulers that have to be delivered to the racetrack. And Ryan Blaney's car that one's totaled.
Getting set for the restart, Michael McDowell, Denny Hamlin, Austin Cindric, Christopher Bell. Here's some audio from Team 11.
Make sure the 42 knows that he's a very important part of this equation. Got to stay aggressive on the line. Copy.
3 Toyotas lined up on the bottom. They also have Bubba Wallace out back in 16th place. 3 Fords rather, Smith, Allmendinger, Byron, and McLeod, 4 of them. The rest are Fords.
And what Denny is talking about is the responsibility of that third place driver to maintain that gap as close as possible to second. The second place guy is the one that is responsible for pushing the first place car. So you all have a responsibility. Everybody.
Only 4 cars electing the inside lane here for this restart. Very interesting that so many cars are up on the high side. We'll see how this is going to work out. Definitely a big numbers game being played here. Green flag back in the air. And Michael McDowell, the pole sitter for this race, and the guy who will start second in the 500 on Sunday, barring no incident here, is leading the way with Austin Cindric right behind him. 8 laps to go, an 8-lap dash. We had a 6-lap dash to the checker in Duel 1. Duel 2, it'll be 8. And Denny Hamlin, despite not having a lot of cars on the bottom initially, had a great enough push from Christopher Bell. He is separated from Bell, moves to the lead, pulls up to block the 34. Big zigzagging move to get back to the outside of Hamlin again is McDowell and Cindric, and they'll pull clear of the 11 into turns 3 and 4. Brad Keselowski, another Ford, followed by another Ford, the 36 of Kaz Grala up in contention all of a sudden. BJ McLeod still hangs on to the draft right now. Grala has to beat McLeod, and in fact, I do think he has to beat the 60 of David Reagan as well to get in. Reason being is because Reagan, although he is locked into the Daytona 500 based off of qualifying speed, if he were to beat Grala, then he would lock himself in virtue of racing his way in, and then the qualifying speed would be obtained by BJ McLeod. So Grala has to beat the 60 and the 78 to get into the Daytona 500. McLeod just has to beat Grala if, of course, David Reagan can't pass the 36. And Reagan's a lot closer to the 36 with 7 to go right now versus McLeod at the tail end of this lead pack. But BJ still holding on strong, even with some damage to the right front fender of that race car. Obviously, a lot more cars on the inside now than what there was on the initial restart, although the Fords on the outside continue to lead the way. Michael McDowell out ahead, 6 to go at the line. Austin Cindric pushing him from behind in second. Denny Hamlin and Bell down on the bottom. It was a Toyota and Tyler Reddick winning dual race number 1. We'll see if the Toyotas can sweep the duels here tonight at Daytona. Down to 5.5 laps to go. 3 wide at the tail end of the pack. Chase Briscoe has no help in the third lane. He'll drop to the back. Roughly 13 or 14 cars remain in this race. Actually, about 16 cars remain in the race. I apologize there. Josh Berry, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Riley Herbst, and Noah Gragson were the 5 drivers who have DNF from this one. 34 dancing around quite a bit in the middle of turns 3 and 4. Allowing for the bottom to stay a lot more smoothly, which allows for Denny Hamlin to lead another lap at the line. Back to Cindric locking bumpers again with McDowell. Both Hamlin and Bell started deep in the field, much like Reddick, who ended up winning that first dual race. Again, the Toyotas did not qualify well, all of them outside the top 20 in single car qualifying, excluding Eric Jones, who was 16th. He was the only one of 9 Toyotas to qualify inside the top 20 last night. Down to 4 laps to go this time by, and it's Denny Hamlin out in front of the field. Finally going to pull to the outside to block McDowell. We haven't seen that much. McDowell got a big push, and he's going to pull into the third lane, and more than likely he's going to drop to the back. He wants no business of how dangerous that push was. And I don't expect McDowell to really stay in it anymore. He is locked into a front row starting spot for the 500, so now the race is on. And the winner of this race, assuming obviously McDowell doesn't get back to the front, would start fourth in the Daytona 500 on Sunday. And again, the second race separates, this second race tonight will align the outside lane for the start of the Daytona 500 accordingly, based off their finishing position. Hamlin and Bell 1-2. Definitely a big moment. McDowell kind of got jammed between Hamlin and Cindric. Cindric was pushing him, and then he also made contact with Hamlin. Surprised Hamlin's car stayed as steady as it did. Cindric finished second in the last two dual races, his only two career dual races at Daytona. Does he have a chance to win this one, or will he finish second 3 years in a row? He's in second right now with coming up on 2.5 laps left. Brad Keselowski right behind him. Couple of Fords may try to work together on Hamlin if Bell can't get back up there. 3 wide around A.J. Allmendinger now in the middle group. 3 by 3 by 3. Everybody getting jammed up. It got very tight between Keselowski and Cindric. Cindric falling back in the outside. So is Keselowski. Allmendinger behind the 6 in the middle. And the 36 of Grala's going backwards, allowing for B.J. McLeod to catch him for that final transfer spot of the open entries to get into the Daytona 500. As the Fords fell back on the outside after getting discombobulated, 3 Toyotas lead the field on the bottom of Hamlin, Bell, and now John Hunter Nemechek in the 42 for Legacy Motor Club is also up there. McLeod trying to pull up into the outside to block the 36. He wasn't aggressive enough. He might have had a chance to get there, but he didn't go for it. And McLeod is going to pull alongside Grala. They'll be side drafting each other. There's a big lane change in front of the 78. Quite a few cars went to the bottom that time, getting into the corner. Bubba Wallace is the lone car in the outside lane right in front of Kaz Grala. 1 lap to go, sponsored by Credit One Bank at the line. Denny Hamlin leads single file line through about the top 5 cars. Harrison Burton from 6 moves off the bottom to the top in front of Cindric, and Cindric is going to push away into turn 1. Grala and McLeod have lost the lead draft as they battle. Currently, Grala ahead in the middle of 1 and 2. Hamlin got too far out ahead of his teammate Bell. Crisscrossing now. Bell to the outside. Hamlin not a lot of help, and Bell to the lead on the back straightaway. The 21 and the 2 pushing into turn 3. Burton all over the place. Cindric down underneath of the 21. And now the 11 of Denny Hamlin is going to push Cindric. Can Cindric get a run after Christopher Bell? Off turn 4, Cindric has momentum, looking to the outside. Bell blocks high, blocks low. Christopher Bell is going to win. And it looks like Kaz Grala is going to race his way into the Daytona 500 further back in the pack. Christopher Bell has won dual race number 2 after finishing second by a nose last year to Joey Logano in his dual race. This year, he goes on to win. And for the second time tonight, a last lap pass for the win by a Toyota gets the victory. This one was a Toyota on a Toyota. The first race was a Toyota passing a Chevy. But Hamlin got a little bit too far out ahead of his teammate off turn 2, and Bell was able to slingshot his way by on the outside. Hamlin ends up bringing it home in third, and again at the back of the pack, Kaz Grala finishes 12th ahead of McLeod and Reagan, which he needed to make the Daytona 500, so Kaz Grala will be in the Great American Race, and unfortunately for B.J. McLeod, who had a very fast race car in this one, got caught up in that mid-race incident, the big one, if you will, and unfortunately just wasn't quite able to get back around Grala there in the late going, despite having a chance going back and forth with him. Yeah, quick move to the bottom. Hamlin blocked that, and because he blocked once, he had no chance to block the second time. The 20 got a big push from the 21. And Cindric had a chance to stay with Harrison Burton, but he did not. He went below the 21 car. Burton got shuffled out of line, stacked up the outside a little bit further back. It looked like Burton still came home in 5th, but lost a couple positions there on the final lap, and Cindric tried to make a move for himself. And for the 3rd consecutive year, Austin Cindric finishes 2nd in his dual race. If that ain't consistency, I don't know what is. The 2 car finishing 2nd 3 years in a row at Daytona. Not to mention, he also finished second in 2022 in the summer race and won the Daytona 500. Cindric has been on it at this racetrack with this next-gen car and could be a threat to win again on Sunday for the second time in 3 years. But as for right now, Christopher Bell's the one waving the checkered flag here tonight, and you'll get to hear from Bell right now.
Child to give that winning flag to. He's pointing him out right now. Christopher, we talked about it over and over again, but you've won on every style of track in NASCAR, but a super speedway race. What does this one do for your confidence going into the big one on Sunday?
Yeah, it feels good. These fleet races, man, they're, I don't know what to think of them. Me and Adam Stevens, my crew chief, we have a running joke that I always say these races are 100% luck, and I know that that's not true, but it seems like we've been struggling to get to the end of it, and you know, I know I've been a common denominator in a lot of the wrecks, so it feels good to do everything right today.
Well done.
Thank you.
Denny Hamlin comes home third in duel number 2, trying your best to hold off Christopher Bell. What more did you need at the end, and what did you learn?
Yeah, I probably just needed to cover the top there a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, it was a great, really good move by him and getting the momentum that it started to get stirred up there behind him. And, you know, we're trying everything here in can to block both lanes, and you just can't. You got to pick one. And really just, you know, good solid day and got some information to learn from, and we'll go race here on Sunday.
Thanks, Denny. Reed?
Well, it's quite the roller coaster ride for Kaz Grala. Last night, of course, the troubles, and then you come here tonight. Looks like you're going to be okay. You lose the draft, then you get the draft back with the yellow flag. Somehow you raced your way into the Daytona 500. How are those nerves right now?
Oh man, I'm just coming down from it, but that was so much more stressful than it needed to be for us. You know, for a little while there, we looked to be in good shape, and then yeah, we had some trouble there. Pit road, we weren't able to stay with the draft. So just really proud of everybody at Front Row Motorsports. They worked so hard the last 24 hours to get our car ready to race today. We had some troubles yesterday, so really cool to be able to get it in the show for them. This is a big opportunity for me here. So excited to be here on Sunday again.
Have fun Sunday. Thanks, Kaz.
With that 12th place finish, he will be starting in the 26th place position on Sunday for the 500 because, of course, Michael McDowell finished behind him. Ends up starting in second as he did not go to a backup car. Got a little hairy there late for McDowell, but he was able to stay out of trouble nevertheless. So both the qualifying front row positions that were locked up last night by Logano and McDowell will remain the front row starting positions for the Daytona 500 on Sunday. We'll go through the full field finishing order of dual race number 2. Christopher Bell with the win. Margin of victory by 1/10 of a second over Austin Cindric in second. Denny Hamlin finishes in third place, led coming to the white flag in this one. John Hunter Nemechek in fourth. I got to say, the Toyotas look very, very quick this weekend. Very surprising for me. And I was high on Fords, and they just don't seem to be as strong at Daytona as what they've been the last couple of years. And I know they didn't win the 500 last year, but they won the dual races. They swept the dual races. And then obviously the rest of the super speedway races through the year, they look to be the fastest race in, race out, specifically the Penske's and the RFK Fords. But I got to say this year, yeah, Blaney was up in contention, but now he's going to be in a backup car at the back of the field. Kyle Busch looks strong. He's going to be in a backup car, which I don't feel as bad for him, only because he was in a backup car last year in the 500 and still looked pretty quick. So I do trust that at least he can be quick again in the 500. He just might not lead as many laps because he's starting deep in the field. But I expect him to at least potentially have another good finish in the race. But yeah, I mean, coming into tonight, I mentioned that the 6 favorites I had for the Daytona 500, I might not have mentioned it as much tonight as what I did last night, but the 6 favorites coming into the week before any cars were on racetrack, I liked the RFK Fords of Keselowski and Buescher. I like the Penske Fords of Logano and Blaney. And Logano, to a certain extent, I still like because he is starting out front. But I would say that dropped a little bit just because he didn't look quite as strong in the dual race, and the Fords in general just not quite as strong as I would have expected them to be. The RFK Fords really were nowhere to be found until Keselowski late in this one was up towards the front. I know Buescher was in the first race. There were only a couple Fords there, so I'd probably feel a little bit better about the RFK Fords than the Penske Fords specifically. The only other 2 drivers, like I mentioned, Kyle Busch was one of my picks, one of the 6 that I had potentially winning the race, and Denny Hamlin. Hamlin was the only Toyota I felt confident potentially winning the 500, and I think he probably, of those 6, showed the most promise tonight going into Sunday. considering he finished in third place and he led quite a few laps. And even the laps, he only led 5 laps, but even the laps he didn't lead, though, he was running either second behind Bell or who was he second place behind going into pit stops? Bubba Wallace, that's right. Yeah, Wallace was in front of him for 21 laps, and Hamlin was just sitting there in second for a large portion of this race right behind him. So I do like Denny Hamlin. I like Bubba Wallace. I think he's risen up my personal ranks for this weekend, even though he didn't have as strong of a finish. He wasn't up there with the other Toyotas at the end of it. He was also caught up in that incident, though. That's why he had some damage and couldn't really get back up in contention on that last 8-lap dash to the checker. We'll go through the starting lineup for the Daytona 500 once we get through, again, this full field finishing order. So Hamlin finishes third, John Hunter Nemechek fourth, Harrison Burton rounds out a top 5 run at fifth. All 3 Daytona dual races for Harrison Burton. He's finished in the top 10 now, 2 fifths and a ninth. Fifth again here tonight. Zane Smith, good run, finishes in 6th place. He had a top 10 last year in his duel and another top 10 this year. Brad Keselowski ends up 7th, William Byron 8th, Chase Briscoe 9th. Justin Haley rounds out the top 10. Good run for him tonight. Bubba Wallace in 11th, Kaz Grala 12th. Again, he raced his way into the Daytona 500 through this duel. He'll be starting in 26th. AJ Allmendinger is going to finish 13th in the duel. BJ McLeod, who finished 14th, 2 positions behind Grala, unfortunately will not be going to the Daytona 500. He will be headed home early. David Reagan, who was one of the other open drivers in this race, again, qualified his way in on time last night, so he is locked into the show. He'll be starting 32nd in the Daytona 500. Michael McDowell, who finished last car in the lead lap 16th, got out of harm's way when he was almost in harm's way there in the final laps of this race. He will still be starting second in the 500 after qualifying there last night. 17th on back, all DNF'd in this one, and they were the only cars not to finish on the lead lap in duel number 2. Josh Berry, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Busch, Riley Herbst, Noah Gragson, all going to backup cars and were caught up in that big one that ended up taking place. Surprised that there were only 5 cars that actually DNF'd out of that, because there were nearly a dozen involved in the incident. But a lot of the cars that were spinning mainly just had to change tires, buff out fenders, and they were able to continue on. Some of those drivers that were collected in that incident that have made the Daytona 500 or were already in the 500, we'll keep an eye on them over the next couple of days, that they will have to go to backup cars or not, with repairs that they may have to make. We'll see as that develops. Obviously, there will be practice the next couple of days. We're not streaming practice this week for the NASCAR Cup Series, with streams already being taken place through the rest of the weekend with the Truck and Xfinity and ARCA races leading up to the Daytona 500 on Sunday. So not going to be streaming practice this week, but when they get into the normal flow of the half-hour practice session before qualifying, we'll do that on Saturdays before the Xfinity and truck races on their respective. Could change the starting lineup for at least the outside row in this dual race, more so than the inside row, again, because more cars were collected in the incidences. But that is the finishing order for this one. Other race stats before we get into the starting lineup for Sunday. Again, the only caution led to an 8-minute, 49-second red flag. That was at lap 47. In total, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looked like 11 cars involved, so yeah, about half the field. 11 cars in total were involved in that incident. We had more drivers lead a lap in this race. It looked like 9 different... Actually, it's the same amount. So 9 drivers led a lap in both races here tonight at Daytona. Most laps led was Bubba Wallace with 21. Pole sitter in this race, Michael McDowell, led 3 different times for 18 laps, led the second most. Everybody else in single digits. Riley Herbst led 7 laps in the early going, looked pretty strong. Maybe one of the stronger Fords, to be completely honest. Had a good qualifying effort as well. Ryan Blaney led 1 lap in there. AJ Allmendinger led 2 laps. Byron led 5. Hamlin led 5 there, mostly towards the end. Bell led just 1 lap, final lap. So both dual winners tonight led just 1 lap, and it was the final lap of the race, the most important. Harrison Burton also ended up leading 1 lap in this one. Don't forget that points were on the line for the top 10 positions, so both Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell will be on top of the point standings with 10 points before the Daytona 500, of course, starts on Sunday, and more points are awarded through Stage 1, Stage 2, and the race finish, as we'll see through the rest of the season. With those 9 different leaders, not quite as many lead changes in this race, but pretty darn close to it. 14 lead changes. We had 17 in race 1, but again, 9 different drivers led at least 1 lap. This race a little bit slower, a longer caution period, obviously, with the cleanup and the red flag. Excluding the red flag on the elapsed race time, still had 55 minutes, 49 seconds. First race was a little bit quicker, a couple miles per hour faster than the average race speed. 166.7 miles per hour is the average speed of this one. Again, we had a red flag, 1 caution. And margin of victory again for Bell over Cindric, 1/10 of a second. So that sets that up. We'll go through the starting lineup real quickly for the Daytona 500 on Sunday, subject to change depending on how many cars go to backup cars that aren't already announced to go to backup cars that could not make it to the end of this race here today. So Joey Logano again on the pole for the 500 based off qualifying last night. Michael McDowell outside the front row in second. Row 2 will be the two dual winners from tonight. Tyler Reddick inside of row number 2 will start third, and Christopher Bell starting fourth, dual race number 2 winner. Chase Elliott and Austin Cindric will make up row 3. Alex Bowman, Denny Hamlin in row 4. Carson Hocevar, John Hunter Nemechek is going to be in row number 5. Row number 6 is Eric Jones and Harrison Burton. Row 7, Daniel Suarez and Zane Smith. Ty Gibbs, Brad Keselowski, row 8. Kyle Larson, William Byron, row 9. Chris Buescher, Chase Briscoe will be in row number 10. Row number 11 will be Ross Chastain and Justin Haley. Jimmy Johnson, Bubba Wallace in row 12. Ryan Preece and Kaz Grala in row 13. Row 14 for Martin Truex Jr. and AJ Allmendinger. Truex's 20th attempt at the Daytona 500 this weekend. Corey LaJoie and Josh Berry will make up row number 15. Row 16, Ty Gilliland and Ryan Blaney. Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch in row 17. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Riley Herbst, row 18. Daniel Hemrick, Noah Gragson, row 19. Anthony Alfredo, David Reagan will round out the 40-car field on Sunday for the Daytona 500. Appreciate everybody that tuned in here tonight as well as last night. We had more than double the viewers for tonight's stream, so greatly appreciate everybody that tuned in. Took a screenshot of what we had last year. I want to see if we top viewership for the dual race this year compared to last. Give me 1 second on that. Close, but not quite. But we also have, like, this was up to date now what the viewership is, not obviously from where it was at the end of the stream last year. So I'll give it another 24 to 48 hours yet in case people go back and want to rewatch my commentary of the race. The races, I should say, from tonight. Appreciate everybody that tuned in once again. We'll have live commentary for the NASCAR Truck Series race tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. What if ARCA rained out? Well, they would just end up postponing it to whenever they can run. Honestly, it might be a triple header on Monday. If ARCA and Xfinity rain out. I know it's supposed to rain Saturday and Sunday. I just don't know what time it's supposed to start Saturday into Sunday. It will be a monsoon/torrential downpour, and I know that it's more of a chance that Sunday gets postponed than Saturday. I don't know if the rain's supposed to start like Saturday night or later Saturday evening. Maybe they can get the ARCA race in, but not the Xfinity. I don't know. When we get within 48 hours, actually, we might be able to. It is Thursday. Give me 1 second. I'll check the Weather Channel real quick before we go off the air, just to see what the forecast is like hour by hour. Daytona Beach, Florida. 71, overcast skies tomorrow, no rain. More than likely no rain. It's only a 15% chance. So, obviously tomorrow night's good for the Truck Series race, but we'll check hour by hour. We're not going to be able to get into Sunday yet because I can only go up to 48 hours. Friday clear. It looks like Saturday about 7 to 8 o'clock a.m. it's supposed to start. And it's supposed to rain all day Saturday as of right now. Percentage 61% at 7 a.m. is the lowest percentage chance of rain all the way through the rest of the day Saturday. So it doesn't look good for Saturday. And it only goes to 9 p.m. Saturday night right now. So I'll know more in detail during a Truck Series stream tomorrow. We'll get within 48 hours of the Cup and Truck Series races. Maybe it rains all day Saturday, and maybe it ends like early Sunday morning and not all day Sunday, and they can at least get the 500 in. But we'll see. They're calling for rain on Monday too. It's only 30%, so I don't really count Monday. If it's less than 50%, it's more likely not to rain than to rain. So, if they don't get the race in on Sunday, they're definitely going to get it in Monday, probably Monday night if I had to guess, especially when you consider the fact that the Xfinity and the ARCA races might have like ARCA Monday morning, Xfinity Saturday afternoon or Monday afternoon, and then Cup Series Monday night. Might be a triple header then. But I'll keep you updated in the community tab as we get closer, obviously. And get some details on the inclement weather, unfortunately, in the Daytona area this weekend. But we know no hiccups for tomorrow night's stream, 7:30 Eastern time tomorrow night. I'll see you there. NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series opener at Daytona. That one we know will be uninterrupted. Hope to see you guys for that. Thanks for watching as always. Have a good rest of your Thursday night, all day Saturday or Friday afternoon. See you tomorrow night. Be sure to hit that like button if you haven't yet. Subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. And we'll get on out of here. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a good, safe rest of your Thursday.